Good morning. This is Terry Hamilton Brown.
Good morning, Mr. Brown. We still have not started yet. It's still waiting for a lot of faith.
Thank you. No problem. I was having problems dialing in, so I'm glad I didn't miss anything.
As was I, Terry. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello. Yes. Okay, what's going on?
Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we thought it was an allergy to her. She has allergies, and we're trying to figure out which allergy is causing it at the moment.
Hello, who's ever on the telephone? We hear your call. I get kicked out. Hmm.
Yeah. And have to go to the bowls of the parking garage for handicap parking. I need my push for this one. You plan your day. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Hello, Miss Brown. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. All right. All right. Good morning.
Good morning.
We're going to begin with the reading of the preamble. And good morning, everyone. I call Board of Zoning Appeals to order for this date, and we're going to begin with the reading of the preamble. Our secretary is absent, so Mr. Bay is going to play that role for us today.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In compliance with notification requirements of the city's open meeting law and section 101.021 of the codified ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the city planning department conducts its meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by voice vote. Abstentions from any vote due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the taking of any vote. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting have the opportunity to be heard, we ask that you use the raise hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raise hand feature can be found in the participants panel on the desktop and mobile version of WebEx and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking on the raise hand icon again and mute your microphone. We will also be utilizing the chat feature to communicate with participants. The chat feature can be activated by clicking the chat button located on the bottom of the WebEx screen. Call-in users can unmute by using *6. All meeting activity is recorded via the WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube for public view. We have provided a link to the meeting for those who wish to speak on a particular case via our website and email. All requests to speak on a particular matter have been considered. We have also received emails from those who have provided written comment on a particular matter. I also have the meeting rules and procedures to announce. It's for the general public as well. The chair will call each agenda item, and then each applicant will be invited to proceed through their presentation. Each presentation should be completed prior to questions and comments from the commission in order to facilitate a smooth presentation. Once the presentation is concluded, the chair will ask planning staff to summarize recommendations and any public comments received. The deadline for public comment was noon on Wednesday prior to any regularly scheduled Board of Zoning Appeals meeting and will be read into the record. Any comments received by the deadline are distributed to board members prior to the meeting through Dropbox. Staff will also identify any members of the public present and scheduled to speak. Public comment is allowed at the discretion of the chair, and any individual providing public comment is permitted 2 minutes to speak to the agenda item in which they have an interest. The chair will then request a recommendation from staff if applicable. The board will then begin deliberations and project review. Any board member except the chair may make a motion at any point after an agenda item has been called.
All right, Ms. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Faith,
I am here.
Ms. Holzer,
Present.
Ms. Roca,
Present.
Ms. Wilson.
Present.
Lovely. Okay, we have Councilman Harsh in the room with us. As a courtesy to city council members when they are present, we move their case to the front of the agenda. All those that are part of this calendar number, 24-047, if you'd step to the front of the table if you wish to make testimony.
I haven't been down here in person yet, Madam Chair. Here or here?
You can move the chairs.
You
Chairs.
move the chairs, yes. They're conveniently on rollers. Don't go crazy with that thing.
Okay.
Great. Ms. Holzer, if you'd like to read the case into the record.
Sounds good. Morning, everyone. Our first case is calendar number 24-047. This is at 4600 Brook Park Road. EnviroServe Inc., owner, proposes to establish use as an operation of solid waste facility / transfer station in a B3 semi-industry district and a G3 general industry district. The owner appeals for relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances as stated in the agenda and the public record, of which there are 3. And with that, I will hand it over to Ms. Wilson for the oath.
Thank you, Ms. Holzer. I will swear in all who are present for this matter. I see that there. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Please raise your right hand, reply with I do, state your name, please spell your name, and state your address.
One more time. I do. Chris Harsh, KRISHARSH, 601 Lakeside.
Yes, I do. Ryan Reed, RYAN REID, 9561 South Buttonwood Drive, Salt Lake City, Utah.
I do. Amanda McNally, 5313 Campbell's Run Road, Pittsburgh, PA, 15205.
I do. Terry Ernest, TERRYEARNEST, 15 Percheron Drive, York, PA, 17406.
Al Gazdaco, 13110 Prince George's Avenue, Uniontown, Ohio, 44685.
Spell your name, please.
Last name.
GAZDACKO.
Thank you very much.
And then I do as well. Charles Kennick, Old Brooklyn CDC 4274 Pearl, CHARLESKENNICK.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in this matter, please go ahead and swear in.
Thank you for the first name.
On back to you, Madam Chair.
Albert.
Albert.
Yeah.
Director Wong,
Albert.
would you like to?
Yes.
Do we talk during after the presentation?
Okay.
Just want to make sure that we.
Am I able to swear in?
Yes, we were having a comment, but yes. go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry.
That's all right. Go ahead.
I'm Melissa Morrow, City of Parma, 6611 Ridge Road, Parma, Ohio.
Great, thank you.
And then do I make my comments during after their presentation?
Yes, right, we're good. All right. Do you want to make comment first before we go to presentation?
I would like to, Madam Chair,
All
if I
right.
may, briefly. Madam Chair and members of the board, good morning. This application before you has been a little bit complicated by cross-jurisdictional issues with Parma and Cleveland. It's the first time in my council experience that I've dealt with a cross-jurisdictional issue. There was a little bit of a learning curve, and I do apologize for that. I did not quite understand how we interacted with another jurisdiction, but also my counterpart in Parma, Councilman Castleberry, lost his mother over the weekend. So unfortunately, he's not able to join us today, and there's a little bit of a delay there. However, Madam Chair, the applicants have traveled from multiple time zones to be here today to put forth some of this. So my request to the board is if we could have a discussion about some of the facts of the case, informational, so that we can get some of the issue at hand on the table while the applicants are here. However, we might not be able to resolve this today. And I would just request that we be able to have an opening discussion about some of the issues that are, because people will be able to review this hearing later on at their own time and get caught up to speed on some of these issues, if that's acceptable.
Right. So obviously we have people from various states that have come in for this. And we have a representative from City of Parma, but my understanding is that, you know, as you just stated, there's issues that yet to be resolved, and condolences to your counterpart in Parma for the loss of his mom. So, so what we'll do is we'll take your presentation.
Okay.
And so we have that into the record, since you all have traveled some distance today, so that we can hear that. So who's going to be the spokesperson?
I'm going to do a brief introduction, and then Amanda's going to go through the presentation. if that's
Okay, great, go ahead.
So appreciate the board allowing us to do this presentation. Just a little background. EnviroServe was founded in Cleveland in 1990. We moved to this property in 2012. And in 2019, we made the decision to call it home, and we purchased the property, even though we were leasing it. EnviroServe has about 650 team members across the U.S. However, we've got 6 locations across Ohio. This location specifically on Brook Park is our largest location in terms of the total workforce that we employ. We see it as a critical part of the business. We've got about 75 team members and 202 team members in the state of Ohio. We are stewards of the environment. This business, we go out and we clean up messes that, you know, other industries make. We take compliance very seriously. We have processes and procedures, but our core business is environmental remediation, waste management, and emergency response. So those are just as a quick background. We appreciate the opportunity to be here. We want to work with Parma to make this to work, and that it's agreeable. And we think at the end of this, we'll be able to maybe bridge some of the gap of the information that might not be out there. So with that, you know, I'll hand it off to Amanda, and really appreciate the time.
Sure, great, thank you, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing our presentation here too. Are you in the slides?
Yes.
If you could advance forward 2 of the slides, actually. So the variances that we are requesting in front of the board, not today, but presenting this information, there are 3 issues going on at the site, and we'll get into some of the details about what EnviroServe is looking to do. The site is split zone between general industry and semi-industry. The front 25% of the parcel is semi-industry, and the waste processing activity that is a proposed add-on to the site's current capabilities would be permitted under a general industry zoning. But since it is a split zone site, that semi-industry zoning is ruling the permitted uses. The second issue is the residential setback. So the site is on Brook Park Road, bordering City of Parma. And the front of the parcel is located 230 feet from the Parma Residence District, there between West 44th and 46th Streets. As you see on the next slide, we'll get there in just a moment, the proposed operation that we're looking to add at this facility is located at least 450 feet from that residence district. So we'd be looking at a de minimis difference between that requirement between the residence district and the proposed use, even though the front of the parcel is only at 230 feet distance. And then, of course, the last issue at hand is that there's the agreement with the City of Parma to respect the zoning and the zoning requirements and districts across municipal boundaries. So, bringing into effect the residential setback. You can go to the next slide, please. So the view of the site, we have the aerial, the yellow zoned area that you see at the is along Brook Park Road. That is the area that is zoned as semi-industry. The rear portion of the site behind that yellow shaded area is the general industry site. The current operations at the site bring in trucks and waste containers to the rear of the facility. It's labeled as Dock 6, Area 12 at the north end of that map, which backs up to I-480 and the railroad tracks right there. The proposed use would involve removal of some of the accessory buildings and structures there. There is an air handling unit on the roof of the building that is currently unused. It's quite an eyesore there on Brook Park Road. We would be removing that along with some of these smaller building extensions there that are hashed in red. And we do have some renderings further on in these slides that show exactly what the area would look like with this proposed enhancement. And then the proposed processing, the solidification process that we're hoping to add to this facility would occur in that center area, number 13, in the dark blue shaded. And that would be the development of a building that takes non-hazardous containers of non-hazardous waste and adds bulking material to that. And get into some of the details on that in a couple of slides. Next, please. So just some more details. There is the profile view showing that air handling unit on the roof of the building, and that would be removed as part of this demolition process as this project begins. So the non-hazardous waste that's currently received in containers at the site would be rerouted to this proposed area in the center of the site. We would be installing an opaque fence that would meet the general industry requirements here at the site. And that use would occur there in the center of the site where that containers of non-hazardous waste would be placed in a subgrade vessel. And excuse the technical engineering excerpt here. We figured this is the best way to show what's actually going to go on with the waste here. So ground surface is there with that solidification vessel marked. That would be subgrade, around 15 feet deep. It would be a concrete lined vessel with steel liner and leak detection fully engineered system to prevent any leaking of material. And some of that non-hazardous waste, whether it's a liquid or a semi-solid waste, would be placed into this vessel mixed with inert materials such as recycled sawdust or unused diaper tailings, very absorbent materials you can imagine, bulked up to form a solid material that is then loaded into a covered dump truck and taken off-site to a landfill. And that process is taking waste that was previously much harder to handle, harder to transport in smaller containers, taking several truck trips, consolidating it, bulking it in this process, and taking it directly to a landfill rather than intermediate processing facilities elsewhere. So the current operation there at the front, this facility receives the containers of approved waste, non-hazardous waste, and that waste is organized and then sent back offsite in separate trucks, usually to intermediate facilities for offsite processing. Under this, once this new process is added to the facility, this new capability, we would be able to process that waste on site on a fairly short turnaround, 24, 48 hours, that we would have this waste turned around, solidified, and placed into covered trucks for disposal at a landfill or an offsite facility. The addition of this operation obviously gives some increased efficiency to the waste treatment life cycle at this facility, or across the life cycle of where that waste is headed long term. It allows us to process, consolidate those wastes on site while adding about 15 new jobs at around $25 per hour to the facility itself. And that would be additive to the existing jobs there at the facility, the existing 75 or so employees. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. So we do have some digital renderings here of a view. This is looking east down Brook Park Road in the current situation there on the left. You see the air handling unit on the roof of the building and the existing brick structure, and then the taller white structure there in the background. Those are all part of the current operations at the facility. On the left is, on the right, is the proposed facility, that air handling unit removed, and a covered structure with potential to be enclosed with garage roll-up type doors on the front, and the opaque fencing that you see there along Brook Park Road. Go to the next slide, please. This is looking the other direction, shows some better view of that opaque fencing and vegetation there, improving the view along Brook Park Road. The containers you see in that photo on the left, those are containers that are currently there at the facility. That's been part of the operation. Those are all either covered or empty containers there at the site, waiting for transportation to other facilities or to collect waste from those industries that Ryan mentioned. Next slide, please. So here's probably the best view that we have of the proposed front of the facility. This is looking from, I believe it's West 45th Street here. And looking across the facility, removing the eyesore of a unit on the roof of that building, and adding a building that is consistent with the adjacent structures where this operation would happen. So just putting these back in summary, what the small changes that we're looking to make to the facility, and the variance is looking to apply the general industry requirements to this site, and then allowing that residential setback, knowing that proposed use would occur at least 450 feet back from the residential district there in Parma. Great. Anything you want to add?
No, you did wonderful.
Are you making comments, John?
We're waiting for questions, and maybe we can help fill in any details that come up.
All right, okay.
I would add one comment, Madam Chair. The proposed fencing and landscaping, it's easier to look on the overhead if you pull up a map, but they have distance north of the sidewalk where the fence would be back there. They would be able to actually plant trees that aren't under power lines. So we wouldn't have to go Larry Curly Moe on these trees in a few years and chop down the middle. They'd actually clear those power lines and the trees would be back there. Long term, it would actually be a beautification of Brook Park Road, because Brook Park is not a nice street to look at. It's pretty rugged, but we've been working with the Sheets down at the corner of Pearl, who did landscaping. And if they did more landscaping, then Cleveland would be doing landscaping on 2 different parcels for major renovations, which is going to enhance the quality of life for people that live there. Specifically for the people that live on West 46th Street in Parma, the one lady I did speak to, I talked to her last week. She lives on the Parma side. Her current view would be enhanced dramatically because she would have a tree to look at the end of her street instead of shipping containers. My only comment.
And there was a question as to whether we were actually going to do the fence and the trees, and that we're absolutely committed to the community and putting that fence up, and maybe even more trees than what we have here. So we want to be good stewards of the community and the environment. That's what we do day to day. So we're excited about the jobs and the opportunity, and hopefully we can work through any concerns.
Right.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Thanks. I know that Councilman Harsh has stated today that this is essentially information for me. Because this is spread into the record, we have to procedurally at least go through the legal standard and the history of the property, also for information for you as well. And then I know that both I and the city of Parma have some statement that we as well.
Great.
So I think without further ado, if you could call upon the history of the property.
Sure. And Mr. Bay, you doing history?
Yes.
All right.
So, Madam Chair, let's see here. 4600 Brook Park zoning history, no change. The zoning has occurred since 1929, and a record of administrative office. So here's his previous permits for the property. In 1939, erection of a loading dock with addition of the roof has occurred. In 1939, there was also an erection of an addition for office. 1946. Erection of warehouse addition. 1947, erection of a storage garage. 1948, installation of underground storage of gasoline.
The Indians won the World Series that year.
1950, erection of concrete block addition to the storage building. 1955 and 56. Other various additions. Must be small, there wasn't any detail. 1964, the erection of paper box manufacturing addition. 1965, the erection of a lunchroom addition. And 1967, the erection of the chain link fence. So we also found in the digital database in 2003, erection of new storage addition. Let's see here, 2012, change of use, warehouse to offices and locker rooms. 2012, use permit, specialized freight transportation company, maintenance, indoor parking, supply storage. And 2019, certificate of occupancy of existing commercial. No variances are filed for this address.
All right, legal standard.
Madam Chair, members of the Board of Appellants requesting a use variance and an area variance from minimum distance requirements of the zoning code. To obtain the use variance, appellant must prove that denying the request will result in an unnecessary hardship particular to the property such that there will be no economically feasible use of the property without variance, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and a granting variance will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code. To obtain the area variance, appellant must prove that denying the request will create practical difficulty not generally shared by other land or buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and the granting variance will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning.
Great, thank you. Director, did you want to make comment at this point?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thank you to everybody. Thank you, Councilman. Thank you to the chair. For chapter 331.14, which is part of the zoning review and letter of non-conformance, shares that the calculation and application of distance requirements for separation of uses shall consider uses across the city's boundary, and that they should, for the application of the following divisions, C3 and section 347.07, division B and division C of section 3.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, I'm able to hear the director, but some of her words are going in and out. Can you get closer?
Okay.
I will come closer.
Thank you.
Move my chair over. So I'm simply reading the section from 331.04 that directs the city to consider uses and districts across the city's boundary. If the city and bordering jurisdiction have entered into an agreement whereby each will consider uses and districts across the common boundary, and this is something that Councilman Harsh referred to in the beginning, the Director of City Planning shall have authority to enter into such agreement upon notification of the council persons whose ward is affected. And in 2002, the City of Cleveland did establish an agreement with the City of Parma to look at this particular area, especially with the intensity of the use being general industry and semi-industry. And so with that, we are directed by law to work with the City of Parma on this and or at least have the discussion, and therefore would request, following the informational presentation here, that they work to resolve the issues with City of Parma, City of Cleveland, and consider a community meeting.
Great, thank you.
I do have a question for the director about what she just said.
Yes.
Yes.
With respect to the agreement, so obviously this appellant is before us in this zoning process in the city of Cleveland. Is there also an other zoning process in the city of Parma, or no?
No, it'd be for the City of Cleveland's zoning process, and however, the agreement allows the City of Parma to have standing and to have public testimony in the particular matter. And I do know that Shannon Leonard is on and wanted to see if she had any additional comments to make about that. And if not, that's.
Ms. Leonard, are you with us?
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, Board. So there was a court-ordered agreement for the City of Cleveland to work with the City of Parma on zoning matters, specifically because this area north of Brook Park is generally across the duration of our border, semi-industry fronting Brook Park, and then north of it along our highway and the tracks is generally general industry. And the purpose of that is really to buffer the retail along Brook Park, but also the residential to the south of Brook Park in Parma. There is quite a density of Parma residents, blue collar workers in that neighborhood that are affected by the uses occurring on our border. And so that was really the purpose of that agreement, was to make sure that everybody was properly notified in the event that you had a intensity or change of use or expansion of use in this case, with more intensity at this location and along other northern Brook Park properties that are zoned, split zone, semi-industry and general industry.
Okay, I think I have it. So one zoning process, city department has standing per the agreement and the code. So I'm good.
Good?
Yeah.
All right. So we have Melissa Morrow, who wanted to make testimony.
Yes, if I could read a letter from the city of Parma into the record.
Go ahead.
Honorable Board, on July 19th, 2002, the city of Cleveland and the city of Parma entered into an agreement to further the common mission of protecting property owners' rights and maintaining the property value through a mutual respect of zoning setback along our common municipal border. Early in April, the city of Cleveland's Board of Zoning Appeals notified the city of Parma of a pending variance request submitted by EnviroCert located at 4600 Brook Park Road in the city of Cleveland. The applicant is requesting to vary from the minimum setback requirement from their business to residential properties. The Board of Zoning Appeals shall consider this variance on May 29th, 2024 as calendar item 24-047. Based on a meeting with the City of Parma staff and Ward Council, it is our understanding that EnviroCert has requested a variance to establish a solid waste processing facility in the semi-industrial zoning district within 500 feet of residential properties. The processing facility would consist of waste solidification in 2 open pits located under a canopy of a 3-walled structure with the open side facing Parma and Brook Park roads. The proposed operation would be located 230 feet from the residents in the city of Parma. We feel this proposed layout will directly and adversely affect adjacent businesses and especially Parma residences. Because EnviroServe only recently provided an opportunity for the city of Parma to view their proposal at a meeting which occurred 4 days ago on the 25th of April, enough time has not been afforded to adequately review the project, nor has the applicant presented alternative locations on the site which would minimize the impact and magnitude of the variance. The City of Parma administration and council do not believe that all the potential measures to obviate the need for the variance have been exhausted, and too little time was granted for review. We respectfully request the board postpone the decision of calendar item 24-047. This would allow the applicant time to present other methods that minimize the variance, reduce the impact to the City of Parma homeowners, and present their findings to the affected community. Should the board wish to proceed with the hearing, we respectfully request that the appeal be denied, as we believe the project adversely affects the residential properties and that the variance can be obviated by other means, or at a minimum, the variance request can be significantly reduced. We appreciate all efforts to mutually assist us in the fulfillment of the separation of lots and uses with the City of Parma as outlined in the agreement. We are available to meet and discuss this matter further and look forward to feedback from all parties. Sincerely, the City of Parma.
Thank you very much. All right. Any further questions, board?
Madam Chair, I think, Mr. Kennick from the CDC. We have him.
Right, we also had him. Okay. Mr. Kennick from the CDC?
Yeah, this is Charles Kennick, Neighborhood Development Director at Old Brooklyn CDC. We haven't had the opportunity to meet with the applicant, but have been in contact and understanding that the facility has been in operation for many years, and we haven't heard any complaints from residents nearby in our jurisdiction. And from our understanding, this proposal may lead to, in fact, less traffic and less disturbances for any nearby residences, commercial or industrial businesses. So we're in favor of the Board of Zoning Appeals granting the variance.
Okay. All right, board, any other questions at this point?
I'll ask one while we have the whole project team here.
Yeah.
So with respect to the intensity of the use, you are changing the use that is going to be happening on the property. Can you testify as to the change in traffic, the trucks going in and out? Are they getting more intensive or less? And any other changes that are going to materially change your operations? Well, other than what you've already told us about the pits.
I'll start and then maybe Terry can add. So we've designed this. Part of the question and answer is we are not bringing in any new materials that we don't bring in today. So these non-hazardous materials are the same non-hazardous materials that come onto the site today. The way we've designed this is to internalize that waste that comes in today and add this step, this capability in this process. The question about the intensity of traffic, we would still continue to have inbound trucks that would be receiving trucks that would be about the same as before. But without trying to get this to be too complex, is any outbound waste that goes out to disposals. Disposals can be landfills, it can be incinerators, it can be waste to energy. There are specific types of waste that might come in really small quantities. And so outbound trucks are very inefficient because they have to take 2 drums or half a container of this waste to a third-party disposal or landfill. By solidifying it, we're able to reduce the amount of outbound trucks because we get full loads. So the number of miles per ton of waste goes down. In addition to that, we are transporting the waste in a solidified state, which reduces the chances for spills. So before, and the way it's currently operated, is we transport the waste outbound in a liquid state. If that spills, it's likely to contaminate the environment. Good thing is that we don't have that happen. I can't speak, maybe it has happened, but by solidifying it, if there's a spill, there's less of a dramatic contamination to the soil or the surrounding environment. Is that
That's accurate. Yeah, we don't feel the overall traffic is going to go up. We're, like Ryan said, we're increasing the density of the material, put more material in trucks, so potentially reducing the volume of traffic because we're increasing the density of the road.
Madam Chair, may I ask a question?
Yes, Ms. Brown, go ahead.
Due to the change in processing and greater efficiency, do you expect to receive more of the non-hazardous liquid waste? Is this an area where you would perhaps increase this type of processing?
No, that's a very fair question. I appreciate it. There is a chance that that additional liquid waste could come in. At the same time, there are many other facilities that operate these solidification vessels or processes, And so there's only so much waste from a logistics standpoint that can be transported to this site that's more, that is as cost effective as other, going to other sites that already have this process. So there is a chance that the waste could increase. However, the two solidification vessels that we're designing for can only handle so much waste, and so the magnitude of that increase is something that we could get back to the board on, but we don't anticipate out of the gate marketing that to get additional volume, but it very much could be something that could add more jobs and make sense for us for the future.
Thank you. I have one more question as a follow-up. The liquid that will be in the underground vessels, at your current rate of receiving it, how long do you expect it would be there before you'd have a full container of solid materials to remove to a, wherever you take it, facility? And will it smell? Will there be odors in the community?
Yeah, that's a good question. We don't anticipate the waste sitting in those vessels more than 24 to 48 hours. And the 48 hours is because it's over the weekend and we can't move the waste. The material does not have an odor. I think folks are maybe confusing trash or municipal waste. It does have an odor. This is just inert material. It's soils, latex paints, greases, lubricating oils that we solidify with sawdust and paper acrylics. So there's not much of an odor at all.
To be clear, just to be clear, Terry said it does not. It does have an odor. It just, these processes don't require, the odors don't go very far. I don't know how to say the technical term behind that, but the odors have not been a problem. And
right. Okay. Thanks. But for that clarification, the odor is going to stay in that vessel area. It doesn't migrate off the sites or even far away from where the vessel where we're actually taking the material and solidifying it.
Do you have any data to back that up?
I don't have data. I have 25 years of running these facilities, and the neighbors, we've had neighbors all through those years, and it was, that would have been a big issue if the odor was something that was part of this operation.
Is there a radius zone which you think that the odor stays within?
In my experience, you have to walk within 15, 20 feet of the pit, and you don't smell waste. You smell sawdust. You smell the material you were actually solidifying with, oddly enough, because soils and greases and lubricating oils, they don't really have a pungent smell.
And what about VOCs?
VOCs, I've never done tests, but we're not going to bring anything with high VOC.
Okay.
And that's part of our QAQC profiling
Yeah, those are much
procedures.
denser, heavier oils that don't have those volatile compounds that are off-gassing.
Correct.
Okay.
We also do the same operation at another facility, not in Ohio, but we operate another solidification facility and we test the air there. We know what our air limits are there. So we do have experience with running. So.
All right.
Madam Chair, if I may, I think to the question about materials sitting inside the vessels in the ground, I think part of that answer was, I sort of answered in my head, their business model is to not let things sit in those containers. Their business model is to get them in and get them out, and they don't want things sitting in these containers for long periods of time. They're not working. Their people aren't working if these containers are full and not being removed. So their business model is to move in and move out. I think when the term solid waste facility is used, a lot of people in Old Brooklyn, I think a lot of people in Parma think about the Ridge Road facility. We have the tipping wall. We have the whole solid waste, that's the right word, right? It's the transfer station on Ridge Road. And you can't get within 1,000 feet without smelling the transfer station. As soon as you get up Ridge Road, you smell the transfer station. It's a city dump, right? And I think that maybe because that language is similar, driving down Brook Park, which I've done 1,000 times, I've never noticed any foul odors coming from anywhere. And I think that when people see solid waste facility, they're sometimes thinking about the city dump. But that is, my understanding is that that is not what they're dealing with here, and that the materials don't change as a result of granting this variance. So the items that are on site now will be the items that are on site later. And if we don't smell them now, likely not going to smell them later. But I think that some of that language is a little bit concerning to people.
Madam Chair, this is Dan Kolchitsky, City of Parma Building Commissioner. May I have a moment to comment?
Yes, though I don't think you were sworn in, sir.
I apologize. There were some technical difficulties on my computer during that phase of the meeting.
Right.
Is it still possible?
Yeah, we can, we'll swear you in quickly and then you can make a statement.
Very good.
Ms. Holzer?
Okay. Will you please raise your
Ms.
right
Wilson.
hand? Oh, sorry.
Go
Do you
ahead,
swear
go
or
ahead, Ms.
affirm-
Wilson.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth and the whole truth? Please raise your right hand. Reply with I do. State your name, state your address, and spell your name.
Dan Kolchitsky, Kulchytsky, City of Parma, 6611 Ridge Road, Parma, Ohio, 44129. I do.
Thank you.
Go ahead, sir, make your statement.
Thank you. I appreciate it. As Melissa read into the record, the City of Parma has a number of concerns regarding this facility. And we do feel that this has been a rather aggressive schedule in terms of us only really getting a full understanding of it last Thursday in a meeting. Therefore, we didn't have much opportunity to comment or respond back. What we have seen here, however, is several items that do need to be addressed. We do appreciate the City of Cleveland working with the City of Parma in the interest of mutual respect of zoning setbacks. Our residents are primarily the ones that are going to be affected by this. The facility that is being proposed is a 3-walled facility with a roof. The side that is open with the open pits faces directly to the south, to the City of Parma. As the applicants stated, there are no smells currently at the facility, and this is the same material that's being brought in. However, it's my understanding that comes in drums and stays in drums. So it is not an open pit that currently exists at this facility. So the statement, there are no odors currently or fumes currently, would probably change if you put 2 20-foot by 20-foot pits open to the south, to the southern property. We did ask about this at our last meeting on Thursday. We have received no further comment about them fully enclosing the structure. We also did ask, are there other means that they can obviate this issue? Can they move it to a different site? Have studies of this sort been done? We do not have any information from them as to whether other studies were done. The third item that is a concern, we have a area directly to the south where the materials are coming in to the south, slightly to the east of the property, that is called the staging and sampling area. That is even closer than the facility itself. We have concerns about these and other items. Again, to reiterate, the City of Parma would prefer that this be delayed. We also have Councilman Castleberry's letter that we could read into the record, but it similarly mirrors our statement of that we'd like to see this delayed for further discussion, or if the board chooses to proceed, we'd like to see this denied because very little information or very little effort has been shown to us who are directly affected as to other methods that this could be handled. The applicant has also mentioned that there is a facility that they handle this kind of waste. It's in Florida, which they at their meeting said is over 1,000 feet from residential properties. We are open to discussion. We are interested in reviewing this matter further. However, at this point, we are not comfortable, nor the administration, council, nor the building department are in favor of this going forward without further discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. You want to weigh in, Mr. Bay? comment?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, I mean, Shannon, would you like to speak or should I?
You go ahead.
Yeah, so, after reviewing,
she's-
there she is.
Ms. Leonard, are you with us?
Yes, this is Shannon Leonard, Chief Zoning Planner and Interim Zoning Administrator. As this came before us, this was adjudicated prior to me serving as the interim zoning administrator, but I was informed of the situation, excuse me, when I took on that role. Obviously, the city, in terms of land use management and the adjacency to residents with the split zoning, we have obvious concerns. And as has been stated previously by Director Wong, as well as the city of Parma, those discussions really got going late last week. And so it would be advisable from a zoning perspective and as serving in my role to ask that you all request that postponement to go forward so that both cities can find out more information from this company. This is quite of an expansion of the use, as Parma has stated, in terms of the open solidification process on the property. And then with the understanding that the whole purpose of the split zoning across the northern border of Brook Park in Parma is to maintain that we have mutual respect of the residents and the local retail up and down Brook Park, as well as the residents to the south in Parma, but also the north across the freeway in Cleveland. And I just would highly recommend that you all move forward to allow the postponement and community meeting as we request for any uses of this intensity and even less. So that would be my recommendation.
Okay, thank you. So we have a request for postponement from the city of Parma, from our director, and from council. Correct? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
I have not requested a postponement. I understand many people have. I don't feel the need to, but I respect the process.
Okay.
There's one more question, Madam Chair, that I'd like to ask while we have.
Yes,
this
go
group
ahead,
here.
while we have the group here.
Just to get it on the record from your team, since we've heard some testimony from others about the evaluation of alternative sites for the vessels, did you evaluate alternative locations for the vessels? And what hardship will you face if these variances are not granted?
I'll make some comments and then, Dan did say that we did not provide. I don't know if the emails got over. We followed the process. We had the meeting on Thursday with the city of Parma. We followed up instantly that afternoon. Maybe it was the next morning with designs and drawings of where we located this on different parts of the property. They presented some challenges, both from a safety, operational, trucking congestion. We're open to continuing those conversations with Parma, but we have looked at putting it up as I look at the picture, up in the right corner. We've looked at putting it inside the building, which would cause kind of an economic and safety concerns in, demolishing much of that building. We started this process over a year ago. We have many drawings to show that we have, you look at the picture, you instantly think, let's put it in the back. And that's where our heads went. But it created some operational and economical and safety challenges.
Would you like to expand on any of those challenges or leave it at that?
Al works there every single day as we think about the trucks going back towards that dock and increasing the trucks that normally stay at the front part of the property. He might be able to speak more to the operational or safety, and I'm happy to share some of the economic if that's helpful too.
There was, when we originally looked at it, we looked at some of the inbound and outbound transportation. So she had some congestion with cross trucking as we're coming through. So we were looking at, this is the most reasonable place to put it so we can still operate with trucks both inbound and outbound. So you didn't create this pinch point where you couldn't get in or couldn't get out of the facility. That was the main concern with us looking at this location, because there's quite a bit of equipment, there's quite a bit of people that come through there, so you have to keep the flow going of trucks coming in and trucks going out.
The economic portion, if we were to demolish part of the building there on the, as I'm looking at on the left side, just the sheer cost would make this project not feasible and would not add the jobs that we're talking about.
Thank you.
Anything else, board? Ms. Holzer, Ms. Wilson? Question, comment? All right. Okay, so we do have motion for postponement. And it seems that there still needs to be some work done between, as you stated, counsel, between yourself and your counterpart in Parma.
Yeah.
Seems like there's an opportunity for community engagement, which we always like to see before everyone comes before us. And you now know some pain points that you might be able to address. Perhaps a traffic flow chart might be included in the presentation. And anything else that might visually enhance your presentation to the residents. And
Anything related to odor that you could present
Right.
would be helpful.
I'm obviously happy to work with Parma to set up a community meeting to discuss this further with the applicants and the residents of Parma as well. Happy to do that. We can
Great.
Figure that out.
All right,
quickly.
so we'll tap you as the lead on that then.
Sure.
Excellent. And again, anything else that you can pull together to enhance your presentation that might make it more understandable to the general public, I think might be to your advantage, and we'll see you back. Xavier, yes, comment?
Yeah, I was gonna mention, I believe we have to make a motion to postpone, and, our secretary, Elizabeth Kukla, mentioned anything that needs to be postponed today would be, June 3rd would be the soonest date.
Right, and I think that's, I think you're probably gonna need more time than June 3rd. Councilman, do you agree?
I can move fast. It's
Can
still
you?
April. I mean, that's the whole month of May.
Madam Chair, if we are going to
Yes,
head
sir.
into a I'm sorry, this is Dan Kulczycki speaking
Thank
again.
you.
I would have believed that we should have a little bit more time. One of the problems was the very short notice given to the city of Parma, and having had only first heard of the extent of this facility last Thursday, we don't want to run into that again. So we would kindly request that more time than the June 3rd be given so that we have internal meetings with the applicant and any community meetings that need to be arranged.
Madam Chair, can I just address that?
Yeah.
Just for the knowledge of the board, we originally submitted this in February. We were postponed due to the eclipse. We had another postponement to not having a quorum. As we look forward, winter presents problems as we still got to go through a building department process. June 3rd, in my mind, we're happy to schedule meetings as soon as this week with the city of Parma, have a community meeting. I think June 3rd presents plenty of time for us to have those discussions.
I'm actually gonna suggest June 10th. We have Memorial Day weekend in between there, and I realize you've been in process for a while. But I want to make sure that when you come back with all the Ts crossed and the Is dotted.
Thank
Okay, and we're ready to move forward, one way or another. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to postpone, please.
Madam Chair, I move that we postpone calendar number 24-047 to June 10th.
Great, thank you. Could I have a second?
Board Member Holzer, I second.
Thank you, Ms. Holzer. Who's calling the roll for me? Is it you, Mary?
Oh, yes. Ms. Brown?
Yes?
Ms. Spade?
Yes.
Ms. Holzer?
Yes.
Ms. Roca?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Calendar number 24-047 is postponed to June 10th. Well, we may not see you all
We may
back
not see
then,
you all back, but
but
thank you for your.
thank you for coming to Cleveland.
Thank
You picked a good
Enjoy
day
your
to
time
travel.
here.
Yes.
That-
Thank you for allowing us to get this started. It was-
Sure.
That'd be helpful moving forward.
And
Thank you.
welcome to BZA for the first time.
Yeah, I'm usually on. It's nice to be back.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
manager.
All right, we're taking just a second to get things reorganized. Do we have any other council online or in?
I do not see any council members present.
All right. So just we can get everyone organized while we're waiting for people to come back in the room. We're gonna move forward to the top of the agenda, Ms. Holzer, to 24-045. We have anyone in the room present for 045? All right. Okay, you're gonna, we'll ask you to step here to the table, please. And do I see plans or anything? Do you wanna bring those?
I just brought those. I did supply the digital they requested.
All right,
and
great.
they had the
All right,
copies.
you're fine then. Yeah, just settle in and when we get everyone back. Just does have to be that. Okay. All right. Ready?
All right.
All right, we'll begin.
All right, our next case is calendar number 24-045. This is at 9623 Clifton Boulevard. Jessica and Paul Lorello, owners, propose to construct a two-car garage with dwelling unit above on a 6,560 square foot lot in a one-family residential district. The owners appeal for relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances stated in the agenda and the public record, of which there are two. And with that, I will hand it over to Ms. Wilson for the oath.
Thank you, Ms. Holzer. I will swear in all who are present for this case. I'll start with you. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Please raise your right hand, reply with I do, state your name, spell your name, and give your address.
I do. James Monday, Monday. I reside at 511 State Route 45, Austinburg, Ohio.
Thank you. Is there anyone online who wishes to speak in this matter?
Yeah, I see, sorry, excuse me, I see the owners online as well.
Are you guys able to hear me? Sorry.
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead and swear in, please.
Okay. Perfect.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Please state your name, spell your name, and give your address and reply with I do.
Jess Lorello, Laurello. My address is 9623 Clifton Boulevard, Cleveland, Ohio 44102, and I do.
Thank you. Anyone else online wishing to speak in this matter? All right, hearing none, back to you, Madam Chair.
Okay, we'll take history of the property, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in 2014, there was a re-roof of the single-family house. 2021, there was an erection of the fence, as you can see here in the picture in the front yard. Those are the. There's no zoning change for the property, and no other variances are filed.
Okay, legal standard, please.
Madam Chair, members of the Board, appellant is requesting a use variance and an area variance from the minimum floor area requirements of the zoning code. To obtain the use variance, appellant must prove that denying the request will result in an unnecessary hardship particular to the property, such that there will be no economically feasible use of the property without the variance, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variance will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code. To obtain the area variance, appellant must prove that denying the request will create a practical difficulty not generally shared by other land or buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variance will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code.
Great, thank you so much. Mr. Monday, what is your role in this project then?
I'm a builder,
You're the builder?
yes.
Okay, great. I
I've
suspected
known
that
the
was the
family.
case, but,
I've worked for this family for 3 generations,
wow.
so I can tell you that they're good people, they're good intents for the property, which does need a great deal of work done to it, maintenance as with many of the residents.
So, tell us what you're going to do as it relates to the variances that you're seeking.
In regards to the variances, you know, they weren't really looking to convert the house to a multifamily unit. I know that not only in this community, but many to deal with rising costs and taxes, many of them are multifamily units, but they weren't looking to do that. You know, they need a garage. There was a garage. I don't know if you have some of the other photos, sir, from the Landmarks Commission presentation.
I do not.
That's that one picture was from, but there wasn't a garage there originally. The foundation is still there. The garage has been removed, the fence is falling down, you know, it needs some work done. Unfortunately, the garage that was there, the existing foundation, it was not really constructed well. So, you know, we need to remove that and put in a proper foundation. And, you know, this garage they need a garage, and having the studio above would provide additional space without putting an addition on the home as well, which would occupy more of the land, you know, parking. So it's an efficient use to be able to do that, to create some space above. And have a baby, maybe some family comes into town, they could stay up there as well. But they're not really changing the house into a multifamily. You know, they just wanted to add the studio apartment above the garage, and as well as the house. You know, many of the residences, not only here, but I've had my company for 40 years. You see where they install siding on structures like this, you can see the sidings coming off. You know, they want that all to be repaired, to fix correctly. We're going to reutilize, meet the requirements of the Landmarks Commission, because they voted in favor of this.
So you've had approval from Landmarks on this?
Yes, miss.
Okay.
Now, we had to meet some of their criteria. We had to, if you notice here, if you look at the garage, we reduced the pitch of the garage because they did not want the height of the garage to exceed the height of the existing house. Now, just to keep in mind too, you know, this house is somewhat out of place in this neighborhood because it was built in about 1950. The surrounding homes are much older, and they're actually a lot larger than this house that she occupies, which she actually lived 2 doors over for about 5 years in one of those houses. So then she purchased this home because, you know, she's in favor of the neighborhood. But again, this house is a lot smaller than neighboring homes, and to add this garage in the back where there was a garage, I don't know, I think it would be very nice, and so did Landmarks, as long as we've met that criteria of height, as well as disassembling the steps in the front and using those original materials to reconstruct, which it needs to be on that as well, needs to be on a better foundation, those steps. They need to be removed. One of the solid pieces of sandstone, we're going to get that made to actually retain the look, which is, it looks nice. It's not like we're going to stick a pair of precast concrete steps there, which is not going to look well. So the owners have no intents of anything like that, which would be cheaper, but again, we're going to retain the look of the steps that are currently there.
And if I could interject, Jim, as well, this is Jess speaking. You know, overall, sorry, hold on.
Ma'am, you just cut out on us. Mr. Monday, what is the height of the garage at the ridge? She's not coming through.
Are you guys able to hear me now?
Currently, yes.
Okay, sorry. I apologize. I'm in Disney World. This trip was planned like a year ago, so I'm on the monorail. That's what you're hearing in the background. But this initiative is very important to me. So what I was going to say, just to echo Jim, my contractor, is that my goal, the other property owner here is my father, is to improve the neighborhood. Like Jim mentioned, I have lived in the neighborhood for several years. I purchased a house based on the fact that I enjoy living in that area. It's very close to my family in Asheville if I need to access home. And I have got to know the people that rent surrounding me and the owners of those homes. And so the goal is just to make this home better. I understand that it's not a 2-family property, but I am pregnant. I'm due with a child. It's currently a 3-bedroom home, but the top floor, if you saw what the 3rd bedroom is, it's a closet. And so I'm trying to make more room for my growing family as I'm the current resident of that home. And that was the goal, with trying to add additional living space above the garage, because we did look at putting an addition and it just is too tight of a lot. And I thought, to mirror what I'm seeing on the houses next to me that are much larger, and pretty much everything on that length of Clifton is a 2-family home besides my home. I felt that it would still aesthetically match that neighborhood. And, to echo what Jim said, Landmark agreed with us on that what we were proposing wasn't different from what historically the look and feel of that side of the street is.
And while we have you on the monorail, do you want to tell us, your intended use is just for the family? You have no intent to use it for Airbnb or short or long-term rental?
No, not at this time. I mean, I can't say, I don't think I'm gonna have 5 kids, but if I did, obviously I would outgrow this property, but I have no plans to remove this property from the properties that, myself, my sister, and my father have. So my sister owns her home, my dad owns his home. If at some point I outgrew this home, I would like to still keep it, and I could rent it at that point, but at the immediate future, no. So that's just transparently, I can't tell you where I'll be. I'm only 30 in about 10 years' time.
Okay. All right, answer to that other question I
I
had for you.
do not have that height on this paper.
Okay,
But it is lower
it is lower
than
than
the
the
house
existing
as they,
house.
as they expressed, which, and just to mention too, the houses next door are much higher than this house.
Yeah,
They're 3-story homes.
3-story homes.
Yes,
yeah.
miss.
Okay, thank you.
I often say I look like the small side of the Monopoly board, my house against the houses next to me, like those little houses. So if you drive down Clifton, you really can't miss our house, because the neighboring houses do tower quite high above us. And I think I have 3-family homes on either side of me, and then on the other side of those are 2-family homes.
Okay, great. I'll go to questions from the board, please. Anyone have questions?
I don't have a question, Madam Chair, just making sure that, just want to emphasize again that the purpose of this additional unit in the back is not for an Airbnb, and we're not approving or supporting that at this time. It would just be additional living space for the homeowner.
Right.
Yep.
And she testifies that that's the case.
Yeah.
Great. Mr. Bay?
Yep, hello, thank you. My name is Xavier Bay, representing city planning. We recommend approval for this variance. We're supported, this administration is supported for its density, and it does fit the context of the street. As I was out there, it is zoned 1-family, but there are some 2-families nearby. So I don't see a big issue. We don't see a big issue regarding increasing density here.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion then.
Madam Chair, I move that
Ms. Wilson buzzed in first.
Go ahead.
Ms. Wilson buzzed in first.
Okay, Madam Chair, given the testimony that we've heard in calendar number 24-045, I would move that we approve this request.
Could I have a second?
I will second.
All right. If you'll call the vote, please.
Ms. Brown?
She's muted.
She's muted.
Trying to unmute. There you go. Yes.
Ms. Bates?
Yes.
Ms. Holzer?
Yes.
Ms. Roca?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
That's everyone,
Yes. So,
right?
calendar 24 or 24-045 is approved.
It's approved. There you go. You're good to go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for, going through landmarks and getting their approval first. That's helpful. Enjoy your time in Disney World.
Thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful rest of your week.
I think we're all pretty jealous.
I know.
There's a statement that Mr.
Yeah.
Day needs to give them in regards to the resolution.
Oh, yes.
I can tell you the intent for the property is good. It's gonna, it needs work. It'll be good for the
Well, the
community.
plans look good.
It'll be good for the community.
Yeah, I
Should be something about ratification and.
Yeah,
She didn't leave it.
What are you reading?
No, normally it always says the case will be ratified.
Oh, yes, the case will be ratified when we meet.
Wednesday.
Yes, the case will be ratified when we meet next,
You will get notice in the mail.
and you'll get notice in the mail. And if you want to check on it, you can contact the office, though she's out of the country currently. So, it will be after 3rd of next month, or the 6th of next month. That
And
she'll be
then-
back.
Because I applied for the building permits when this came up, will that then continue in the process, or do I need to do something additionally to have it continue in the process?
Excellent question. Do we have an answer for him on that?
Shannon is raising her hand.
Oh,
There you go. Shannon Leonard might be able to answer that.
Shannon has raised her hand. Ms. Leonard, would you like to speak to that for us?
Yes, board. So the ratification normally happens the Monday after this hearing, so next Monday, and then he will be notified either by email or mail. In addition to that, you will, depending on whether it was a paper application or an online application, the paper application you would need to pick up and take back to Building and Housing to continue the process. If it was an online application, it'll immediately be sent to Building and Housing, in which we will move you along in the process from a zoning perspective. But in addition to that, Building and Housing will go ahead and finish up their review in terms of building code elements.
So they'll continue on then, because I submitted plans and everything.
Right,
Online.
online.
No, I brought in physical plans,
So it's paper.
yes,
All right, so you're gonna have,
drawings and everything.
yeah, you're gonna have to hand carry everything from here over to the
Okay.
building department.
After they send me the notification.
Correct,
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
We're back in session May 6th. So we'll ratify May 6th. And so May 8th, you can stop back in. Or I would call first,
Right.
since she's been gone for a couple weeks.
Call on the 8th.
Yeah, call on the 8th.
And which department am I calling?
You're calling Board of Zoning Appeals,
Okay,
and you're gonna speak to probably Brittany,
yep, I spoke to her last.
okay? And our secretary is Liz Kukla,
All righty,
but I think your point of contact is probably with Brittany first,
thank you.
okay?
Thank you. Have a
Thank-
great day.
All right.
You too, thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Moving on, calendar number 24-048.
Sounds good. Our next case is calendar number 24-048. This is at 2070 West 7th Street. TTE Real Estate Group LLC owner proposes to establish use as a brewery and restaurant/tavern in a B1 semi-industry district. The owner appeals to relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances as stated in the agenda and the public record, of which there is one. And with that, I will hand it over to Ms. Wilson for the oath.
Thank you, Ms. Holzer. I will go ahead and swear in all who are present for this matter. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Please raise your right hand, reply with I do, state your name, spell your name, and give your address, and I'll start with you and move to the left to my
I
right.
do, Tiffany Tootin, Tutin, 2094 West 7th Street. Cleveland, 441.
Thank you. Happiness.
Kevin Butler, Butler, Donald Hopkins, 600 Superior Avenue East, 21st floor, Cleveland, 44114. I do.
Thank you. I'll go to you next.
Adrian Liddick, 2099 West 7th Street, Cleveland, Ohio. I do.
Can you spell your last name for us?
Linnic.
Got it. Thank you. Next.
I do. Ed King, King, 390 West Homestead Drive, Aurora.
Okay, thank you.
I do. Toby Hagedorn, Hagedorn, 4579 Windstream Lane, Brecksville, Ohio, 44141.
Okay, thank you.
I do. Casey Grayer, Graor, 23209 Miles Road, Cleveland, Ohio.
Thank you. Is there anyone online wishing to speak in this matter? All right, hear
Our
none.
architect was supposed to be on it, but he had some issues with the connection, I guess.
So I think we can move forward.
Yes, okay.
The other parties, if you'd move closer to the table so you can be heard on the microphone, please.
If you guys want to.
Yeah, I might have you scoot down, shift to the left a bit.
You have two mics here.
I was gonna ask it. Okay.
Right, great. Okay, I think everyone has adjacency now. Okay, ready to go.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So there's no zoning changes for this property since 1929. The only thing I see on the record is a violation notice issued for exterior maintenance of business casualty in 2005.
All right. That's it. All right, legal standard.
Madam Chair, members of the Board of Health is requesting an area variance from the parking requirements of the zoning code. To obtain the area variance, Paul must prove that denying the request will create practical difficulty, not generally shared by other land buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and the granting the variance will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zone.
Great, thank you. All right. Who's going to be the spokesperson?
Because that's
I'm assuming that you guys got the wardrobe memo, so you're all.
Just ironic.
Okay.
Just talked about that ourselves.
Okay. You know, it's the business casual uniform.
It is.
So go ahead, give us your presentation.
Yeah.
And particularly as it focuses on the variance.
Sure, absolutely. All right, so this is, I guess, the presentation. Could you go to the next slide? I wanted to start with what I found online as Cleveland's vision for Tremont, to capitalize on the scenic views, ethnic heritage, and proximity to downtown Cleveland. And especially what I like is that towpath trail that's mentioned here, and to make Tremont a choice destination for visitors and potential residents. I think that's it's a powerful statement for what we are trying to accomplish. It further goes into Tremont being a district for dining and arts. It wants to foster the connection to that towpath. And also it wants to create scenic overlooks of the city of Cleveland and the flats. And I think with what we are proposing here, we're very much aligned with that vision. And I think we can help to bring that alive. So this is what my partner Ed King and I came up with as our mission for this business. I'm not sure how familiar you are with breweries in the area. We are not talking about a distribution brewery that gets their beer into stores. We are talking about brewing on premise for serving it on premise. So in my mind, a brewery is a gathering space. And in this case, since it is so ingrained in a residential neighborhood, our main focus is really to serve the people that live there. And we want to be diverse in that regards and inclusive to all people that live there. And especially when I think about the Scranton Peninsula development, that certainly is also accessible by towpath from this building. Yeah, so we want to add to Tremont being walkable, and the towpath, we want to tie into that. We do not want to really compete with the higher end restaurants in Tremont, but we want to be the go-to option before or after dinner, or before or after an entertainment event in downtown Cleveland. That's really what we're trying to accomplish here. Yeah, and as I mentioned, the brew system we're currently entertaining is smaller than, I want to say, 95% of the other brew systems of the breweries around. that do have the capability to distribute beer to stores. We, due to the size of the system, we simply will not have the capability to do that. And that, I think that is important when it comes to trucking in and out, that we will not have the amount and frequency of deliveries that would be needed for a large distribution operation. And I think that's important part. As far as we are not entertaining right now a full kitchen, we are entertaining a pizza and sandwich menu. So it will be a somewhat limited kitchen operation, but that's included in the plan. Could you go to the next slide, please? Yeah, and I think this is very important to me that, and we've seen other pictures of the building as it is right now. It used to be a machine shop operated for, I want to say 50 years or so by the same company. And it's been now closed for about 3 years. So to me, and I think this picture shows it well, it's an eyesore right now, and especially in the neighborhood of nicer residential homes. It is not lit as we're speaking. It is dark behind the building. I think we saw a picture of the area behind the building. It looks cluttered, overgrown. So our aim was to really change that, by at the same time kind of keeping the character of the building. So the pictures the sketches on the right show that the building in our plans is still very much the same. We will add windows, or where the windows are filled in, we're going to bring the windows back in there. We're going to have lots of glass and an overhead door. And then also we are planning on having a rooftop terrace right there in that front corner that the building on the left shows. And from that rooftop terrace, you have great, in my opinion, great skyline views, and you can see the baseball stadium and such. Next slide, please. And to me, when we engaged with the community, it was important for us to point out that we are not trying to be a bar. We will not be open till after midnight, and that's why I included our proposed operating hours here. To me, craft breweries are very different from bar operations in that regards. That they are mostly like closing early and also, yeah, the amount of the kind of people that frequent these establishments. And the biggest, when we were talking with the neighbors, the biggest problem was the parking. Tremont that's, I guess, normal in Tremont to have that kind of situation. And again, our focus is on serving the neighborhood, and especially when there is alcohol involved, we don't want people to drink and drive. And we really expect most of our patrons to walk or get there by bike. Our plans include a bike rack, a large bike rack in the tree lawn in front of the building. And the towpath, I don't think I mentioned that, but it's right across the street, is where the towpath access is, Camp Cleveland. Right, so on our website, we will encourage the use of Uber and Lyft, and we are looking into potential incentives for that to give back to our customers. As far as available parking, there is a commuter parking lot that has 100 parking spaces right under the interstate, which is 0.3 miles away, and it's essentially, it's a nice walk along the towpath. I walked it myself several times, 6 minutes. Our architect was so kind to send us a letter to use 5 of his parking spots. That is also, it doesn't say it in here, but I think that's about the same distance away. And then there's valet options in Tremont with some of the other restaurants that can be used by customers as well. The issue with the property is that it does not have enough land to create any sort of parking. There's quite an incline, and we have our architect, we've haunted him and tried to get some parking in place, but we were not really successful in getting any on-site parking on our own lot. That is the major challenge we ran into.
Well, we also had talked about potentially cutting into the curb to create some parking, and we were told that that wouldn't happen.
The tree lawn.
That, yeah, the tree lawn, that was not a possibility. So we were willing to invest to do that, but that wouldn't happen. Right.
Can we go to the next slide, please? So now, I think the next 3 slides is about the different parking options that are currently available. And there you see that walk along the towpath, the blue dotted line from that commuter parking lot under the interstate. Every time I've been there, there was plenty of space for cars to park. I've never seen more than like 20 cars parked in that lot. Next slide, please. This is our architect's parking lot that is also 0.3 miles away from the building. That's the five spots that I mentioned. Next slide, please. And this is the closest valet spot is at Dante's, which is another 0.3 miles away. Next slide, please. So in our process, and we started this about a year ago, I want to say, we met with the North of Literary Law Club 3 times. First time, I think, in April of last year. And we made significant, in my opinion, changes to the size of our operation in particular. And when we put it out for a vote in December of last year, we had a significant majority of the present residents voting in favor of our variance and of our project. I want to say they were quite excited about it, at least the ones that voted in favor. You have all received the letter of support. We did present it after that to the Central Block Club of Tremont. They did not vote on it because it's not in their block club, but they also provided positive feedback on this project. We did work together with Tremont West and the Economic Development Committee. They voted in favor, but also highlighted the need for a parking plan, which in my opinion, we have provided with this presentation. Councilman Kerry McCormick sent an email that you also have received stating his full support for granting the variance. So that's all the input from stakeholders we have. Can you move to the next slide, please? So in my opinion is that we're adding value to the city of Cleveland and in particular to Tremont. And we are really showcasing, I think, the rich history of Tremont and also this property in particular. We have spent a lot of time working with the residents to improve the situation. And I think I really want to reiterate that our business model is really not tailored to distribution or any large scale operation. It is tailored to serving the neighborhood and serving our product on site and not in a bar setting, but in a craft brewery setting. And then also, I think Casey, our GM, has looked at parking lots available in the neighborhood, and the majority of the other establishments do not have on-site parking, to my knowledge. There's a precedence in the neighborhood of restaurants and bars without parking on site. Anything you guys want to add?
The one comment I will make is we met with the neighborhood group before we even bought the building or even made an offer on the building. We wanted to know if the group wanted us to be there. If the majority of people in the neighborhood had said they don't want us to be here in that building, we would have not proceeded.
I'm sorry, when you say neighborhood group, what group was
The
that?
North Literary Group.
Okay.
Yeah, the block club that we're inside of. At the end of that first meeting, they asked who would be in favor based on this initial discussion, our presentation. And I almost think every hand in that room was raised. So at that point, that's when we moved forward and started having discussions with Automatic Screw Products, the old owner of the buildings. So, we'd be taking an old industrial building that was a manufacturing facility and completely cleaning it up and making it not an eyesore for the community.
Okay. Mr. Bay, if you would go back to the slide that has their business hours on it. And let's just, if you would read those into the record, please, so we have that for the,
Yeah, so hours of operation is listed by the appellant. Monday closed, Tuesday to Thursday, 4 p.m. to 10 p.m., Friday, 12 p.m. to 11 p.m., no live music past 10 p.m., Saturday, 12 p.m. to 11 p.m., no live music past 10 p.m., Sunday, 12 p.m. to 8 p.m.
great, thank you. Okay, and I see we have a note there, opening hours are subject to change for special occasions such as major sporting events and holidays. Explain to us your intended use for the occupancy of the rooftop deck.
So right now, the occupancy shows 20 people on the rooftop. It is a very small rooftop, smaller than what I wanted, but that was also based on the feedback of the residents. I think it's
under 800 square feet.
Right, thank you.
Okay,
Of which about 100 square feet of it will be utilized just in the stairways to get up.
so you're running under 700 then for actual.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if I may ask about the live entertainment on the roof.
Yeah, that was gonna be the next question, so go for it.
Sure.
You mentioned live entertainment. Are you planning to have that inside the facility and on the roof, or just one of those places, or?
In my opinion, there's just not enough space on the roof to have entertainment and spectators.
It would have to be inside.
Yeah.
Okay.
Speakers on the roof? Sorry.
Go ahead.
Speakers?
We haven't made that decision, but I don't personally see a need for that. The people up there, they're up there for the view.
But if you might have music, I mean, it's gonna be pretty quiet.
Yeah, well,
don't.
that's true.
So.
That's true. If you look at the drawing and you see where contractors call it a doghouse, but that's where the steps come up. To the other side of those steps is where the first house would be. There's also an empty lot between our building and the first house that's part of our property that has a major incline on it, and we're not developing at this point other than having an access point. So that blocks off the vast majority of what's on the roof from the closest residential property.
And when we met with the owner of that house that Ed described, her main concern was exactly that, from that rooftop, people would be able to look into her yard.
Right.
And so she was concerned mostly about blocking that view, us cutting down the trees on the empty lot, or us having some sort of barrier, sound and visual, which this doghouse provides towards her house. So I think this is in favor of what she had asked us to do.
And I trust that if you do have some sort of speaker or sound system on the roof, that you would be respectful of your neighbors, and if it was a nuisance.
Absolutely. We like you said, like I stated, our main focus is the neighborhood, and we certainly don't want to get on a bad reputation in the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, one question as it relates to parking.
Yes, Ms. Wilson.
You mentioned that you would have parking in your architect's place of business. Are those 5 spots designated for your use, or are those 5 spots going to be shared amongst the 2 businesses?
Those would be dedicated to us after his business hours, after 5 o'clock.
Got it. Okay.
Which is really when we need it the most.
Okay.
So in follow-up to that, what we typically ask for is a signed letter of agreement between you and the other party, noting how you have the arrangements that you've agreed upon, and have that submitted. So that would be something that we would likely ask you to.
We have the letter from him. in our
Okay.
presentation.
Yeah.
We don't
Oh,
have
we
a
do?
signed,
Yes.
Okay.
we don't have a contract. We have a letter from.
With his
Okay,
signature.
all right.
Not in our packet, but Liz might have.
Yeah, do we have it?
We have the letter from the block club. but-
Right. I did attach it to my email too.
Okay, we'll just,
We'll just make sure we have it, and if we don't have it, then you'll we asked for it.
I don't have it in the folder here, but I do have it in my email. I printed it off this morning.
Okay,
Okay.
great, all right, so that fulfills that requirement then. So we're good. All right, any other questions, Ms. Brown, Ms. Holzer at this point, before we move on?
I think the presentation was pretty thorough, answered all of my questions, Madam Chair.
I have one question. How many employees do you expect to have?
There was a statement on this slide about employees, I think, and I don't want to state something that was.
I have it, but it's 3 full-time employees, or I'm sorry, 3 salary employees, 6 hourly employees, and then potentially a few part-time employees.
But I think that to fully answer your question, those would not all be there at the same time. The brewery operation would be run during the day, and the brewers would typically go home before we open for patrons to be there. So I personally don't expect more than 5 or 6 employees on site at any given time.
And you mentioned that you have in the plans the bike rack. Have you, on your plan, do you have a designated spot for active transit, meaning scooters, things like that? Because typically we like to, very often.
We do not.
We are right next to the towpath.
Right, they are right next to the towpath, but that would lend itself to, people using scooters or skateboards or things like that, so.
If that's possible to create that in the tree lawn, we have no objection to doing that.
Yeah.
By any means.
Okay, all right. Let me go to these folks. Mr. Butler. Mr. Butler, do you want to go first?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I certainly respect, pardon me, the presentation that's been made today. I am part of the public law group in my firm, and actually am a law director of a suburban Cleveland community. And just as often as I'm advocating in front of boards like this, on behalf of private clients, I'm advising public boards on their obligations. And so I respect the difficult work you do and the considerations you have to make. I also respect the presentation by the applicants here. Our argument today, which I make on behalf of my clients, Carly Kalick, who's not here today, and her wife Tiffany Tooten, who is. They live in the home immediately to the south of this property on West 7th, and therefore stand to lose the most with the granting of these variances, or this variance. I make the presentation because I think if the application fails any objective or subjective standard that's presented in the practical difficulties test. And I'll just explain why I think that's the case. We think that's the case. And just bear in mind, in each of our arguments, we do so very respectfully. Number one, the first test for practical difficulties is whether or not the property will yield a reasonable return or any beneficial use without the variance being granted. In the semi-industry zone, which also includes permitted uses in general retail business, local retail business, multifamily, 2-family, and single family, there are, by our count, at least 125 enumerated uses of property that are permitted at this particular site. It is not offensive that an applicant would choose a use that happens to be one of the most intensive uses among those 125, which is bar and restaurant use. And the brewery use is one thing. That's the day-to-day, daytime brewing operation. It's the bar and restaurant use really that is the problem here. It's not offensive that an applicant would ask for that. This isn't a use variance. What I think is difficult about this is that there are 124 at least other available uses in the code, most of which I would say are less intensive, that can go on this particular site. And that wouldn't have the same kind of impact on the neighborhood. We probably wouldn't be here objecting to a use that was less intensive and that would bring fewer people to the site. But we are here because this is a substantial variance. It's a 100% variance, and it's a variance that would push the 30 or so, let's say, vehicles that would be required to be parked on site onto the street, very likely onto the street, onto West 7th, where there aren't parking restrictions. And that is important. That's going to be an important part of one of these tests for the variance. But the property can be put to other reasonable uses, other returns. And I think under that particular aspect of the test, this application fails. The next measure of the Duncan test that is at issue in practical difficulties considerations is whether or not the variance is substantial. This is a 100% variance. There's not a request to park any vehicles on site. We recognize we're not unreasonable people. We recognize the site is constrained, but it is a 100% variance request. And there are no alternatives here that really will keep cars from being on the street right in front of this business. I don't think folks will recognize I can just park my car 0.3 miles away when I could park my car in front of the residences right in front of the business instead. I think they're going to be expected to park on that street. And so this is a substantial variance, and it's especially substantial for this particular portion of Tremont. Even with a 5-car arrangement that would be after hours only, that doesn't necessarily affect anything. And that was not a factor in the case of 1415 Kenilworth, which this board considered a couple years ago, and which went all the way up to the Court of Appeals. And the court said that even with shared parking arrangements, it was appropriate for the board to deny that particular variance request because it was so substantial. The next test is whether or not there's an effect on the essential character of the neighborhood. And I think that what you've heard today is that because of the councilman's support and because of the Block Club's official support, the applicant does not believe that there's any substantial impact on the neighborhood. What I'm here to tell you is that the property itself is at the very northern tip of Tremont. It's in the part of Tremont that is most residential in nature. There is, behind this street, one small, half the size restaurant that has its own contained parking lot. But generally speaking, there's a coffee shop nearby as well. Generally speaking, in this particular part of that block club, it's all residential. And in fact, several of the folks, including my clients, have moved from one area in Tremont to this area of Tremont in order to avoid the congestion that comes with intensive uses like bars and restaurants. Harley and Tiffany have children that are 3 children under the age of 10. They're there in that spot for a reason. They have, I know that this is late, I would ask for the board's consideration in accepting this, but they have circulated a request for letters and signatures to demonstrate that there are lots of folks in this area who do object to this. This is not universal support. And these are the folks who live nearby. This is a hyper-local issue for them. And so I would ask if the board would consider accepting that. We've got these additional letters from anyone who are established owners all the way down to children who live nearby, asking that the board deny the variance request. The essential character of the neighborhood will be impacted by this because it is largely, almost exclusively residential in nature. This isn't an area in Tremont that suffers from the same restaurant bar use. The next factor in this test for practical difficulty is whether or not it would affect, the variance would affect the delivery of government services. We don't suggest for a second that government services would be affected. We don't think that's an issue here. However, the next one is whether or not the property owner purchased the property with full knowledge of the need for the variance. And we don't think there has been an argument here today made by the applicant that they didn't have knowledge of this particular issue on this particular site. We haven't heard any arguments to the contrary. It's obviously plain to see that the property comes with parking difficulties. We're aware of that. The next question is whether the variance can be obviated. And we have not seen, in our view, enough to demonstrate that the parking concerns of the neighborhood and the test have been met. Those concerns have been addressed and the test has been met. For example, one of the permissive uses in this particular zone is a brewery use. If it were just a brewery use, and if we just had daytime brewing operations, and in fact they were distributing that beer, you might have a different situation here. You may have less objection, but it's not. It's this additional floor space that's dedicated to post-game use and restaurant and bar use and rooftop use and band use. That's the part that suggests to us that the variance, there's no intention to obviate the need for the variance here. In fact, there's an intention to build on the intensity of the use at this particular site by the addition of these additional uses in that particular building. It doesn't have to have that kind of floor space, and it doesn't have to have that kind of intensity of use. It doesn't have to have a rooftop patio. The applicant has not demonstrated that it has tried in every way to obviate the need for the variance. It's bringing as many people as it can on this site. And then finally, the last of these tests is whether or not the spirit and the intent of the zoning code is honored by this. We don't think that that is the case. We think that there are better locations for this use even in Tremont, and there are places that accommodate more businesses and more restaurant use. We also think that there are better uses for this property, as we've demonstrated. 125 uses gives a property owner a lot of opportunity. We just haven't heard any suggestion that there's been a request to try to put this property to a less intensive use. The court in that 1450 Kenilworth case said that economic hardship alone does not rise to the level of substantial deprivation of property rights, and especially where the hardship is self-inflicted. We think that's what's happened here, that the applicant is claiming a hardship with full knowledge and intent of creating the need for the hardship. That should not be countenanced by this particular board. I think for those reasons, the request for the variance ought to be denied. Thanks for your time. Thanks for the extra time.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Mr. Bank, could you put up our aerial view? Interested in seeing how the business relates to the residences.
Yeah.
I think so.
Right, so southern.
One second. Ladies, did you have anything you wanted to add to Mr. Butler's presentation?
I think he did a fine job, and like he said, I think there's it's just not the right thing. I've lived in Tremont for 20 years. We lived on Jefferson and West 7th. We literally moved 4 blocks away because that was known as the residential side of Tremont. This will directly affect the quality of life for us and our kids. And even just last week, there was 2:30 in the morning, I woke up and I was like, what's going on out there? I looked out the window and it was literally just 4 guys getting into their car. And I was like, oh, gee, and I just immediately think about the rooftop. I mean, I think about, and just what's going to happen. It's bridging the gap between the residential and the restaurant bar type of scene. Like, this has always been like a nook of Tremont that's been our kids cross the street to go visit other kids. They go down the towpath and go down their best friend's house in West 6. Like, we're not going to be able to do that kind of stuff. And I like living in Cleveland. I think it's important to grow my kids in Cleveland and be the kind of people I want them to be, that are aware of all the things that go on in the city. And if this happens, I don't foresee us being able to stay. And I feel like that's going to happen to a lot of families. It's just going to change the whole dynamic. And I'm not against breweries. I'm not against bars. I'm not against restaurants. Just this particular location, this particular spot, it's just not the right thing. It's just going to bring so much traffic into that area and so much congestion and drinking and smoking and all the things that happen. But it's just not in this area. It's not been that in this area. And I think it'll just change the whole dynamic of this side of Tremont completely.
Have you seen an increase in traffic with the towpath completion and people accessing the towpath from your area?
Yes. For sure. It doesn't necessarily affect me so much, because when we did our addition and bought this lot and bought the property that we built extra parking in the back, so we would have parking, because we know that's but it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And even when we were going around our whole family went out to get signatures to see, and there was a woman who was 26, and she was like, I like the idea of the brewery, but I literally had to buy cones to block people from parking there now. She's like, there's no way I support the brewery based on parking. There's just nowhere for anyone to go, and people don't care. They block my driveway every weekend. And this is pre-brewery, so there's many reasons.
So you would assume that is from people accessing the towpath then?
Probably, or or some of the other bars and restaurants that are already there that don't have enough parking. I don't know. And speaking to the Block Club, so Block Club is great in what it does, but you can only vote if you're there 3 times out of the year. I was very active before I had kids, but now, unless I go to Block, I have to have a babysitter, and we have to split up, so like we don't go to Block Club meetings. So I don't think the Block Club, I think it's like elderly, generally single people without kids. That was me 20 years ago when I used to go to the Block Club, and now we just don't. So I don't think the Block Club necessarily represents us and the families that are in the area, because they're putting the kids to bed during Block Club. I just want to say that as well, because I think it's important to have it, but it's only a portion of like what it represents. And
right, okay.
And just so I'm clear, you are directly across the street.
So maybe we can show it on that map.
Are you the greenhouse or the beige house?
To the immediately to the north, so that would be to the left of the yellow square.
Oh, okay, so you are.
Correct.
There's a tree lawn in between.
You're on the same side of the street.
We're directly between the trees. So it's like the Mosaic building, the lot, the empty lot, and then our house.
Okay.
So
There's
it's the Mosaic.
white.
Yeah. You're the white?
Right there.
Okay.
We added properties. We added 2 bedrooms and a bathroom for our kids. So we have like double. You see how there's white, and then there's next to it with a double lot.
Okay, so you're there. Okay, ma'am, did you have comment as well?
I did, yeah, thank you. So Adrienne Lennox speaking. I'm actually on the other side of the street. I'm 3 houses, 1, 2, 3, right there. Yep, that's me. Kind of catty corner across the street. I kind of echo Tiffany's sentiments. We know each other. Obviously, we're neighbors across the street. Our kids have known each other since they were, infants. And I do agree with her that the young families and families in the neighborhood are underrepresented a lot in the Block Club. It's hard to get to the meetings. I was very active again before I had kids, kind of like Tiffany. I was on the board for Tremont West with a 3-year term a few years ago. But it's always been a concern that that's an underrepresented portion of the neighborhood. But I think that aside, speaking directly to the issues with the variance, I have to agree there are a lot of concerns. I think everyone likes the idea of the brewery, and I really appreciate the steps that have been taken to kind of listen to the members of the Block Club and make adjustments and changes to what was originally put forward. But I'm sorry, is there a way to go back to the aerial picture? Sure. So I'll get to where patrons and staff and everything, the issues with the parking plan that was presented today in just a moment. But another concern of mine is delivery. And I know it was addressed. It's not going to be the same level or type of delivery as if it were a brewery set up for distribution, which I can appreciate. That wasn't even a thought in my mind. I'm thinking of what a Friday looks like when all the trucks are coming in to deliver to Barrio, to deliver to Professor Market. Professor's just lined. I mean, it's impossible to get to work as it is with delivery trucks coming in. Then you take it to, and that's just where the restaurants and bars already are in the neighborhood. If you take this now to the residential, right? This is the residential part of Tremont. It's known for that. That's why people pick this quiet segment of Tremont. This, after the towpath expansion project with the outlook there, which is beautiful, that street there, the rest of 7th going up the hill towards 10th, that's a steep incline and a sharp curve. That's the only large open space, unless you're right in front of everyone's houses on West 7th, to do deliveries, unless there's some other access that I'm not seeing from the plans. You can't, when you have, and now that street has parking on both sides of it, so you can barely get a single car up. When you have parking along both sides of that curved part of the street, a truck coming down and or stopping for deliveries is really going to congest that area. And I know that's not going to be an everyday thing, but it is going to be multiple times of the week, and it is going to affect the traffic pattern of the neighborhood. Then moving on to where the expected patrons are going to park. I think it's great that there's going to be bike parking, but I also think, reasonably speaking, the large part of the patrons are not going to be people on their bikes from the towpath. I mean, I see the traffic on the towpath with the expansion project. It's a lot of daytime people coming in. Maybe people stop for a drink, maybe they'll stop for a bite to eat, but primarily it sounds like, and what the expected higher volume hours, evenings from 6 to 9, I'd say if you're open till 11, it's probably going to be 6 to 10 or 11. But I think those people are going to be coming in vehicles. I don't think they're going to be coming off of the towpath at night. I still think a large number of people don't utilize the towpath after certain hours for safety reasons, and probably rightly so, which moves into another topic of concern, which are safety of patrons and employees. There have already been years of issues with those individuals being targeted coming from the restaurant and bars that are closing, servers that are leaving, getting held up at gunpoint, patrons that are waiting for an Uber or going to their cars. I mean, that's a large concern as well. That's bringing that to this part of the neighborhood with no real plan in place to alleviate that, other than, well, there's parking underneath, on Abbey, underneath the bridge. That's a walk, and that's a dark walk. It's pleasant in the daytime, but there are more concerns in the evening. Even for Uber and Lyft traffic, where those Uber and Lyft's going to be stopping, again, with that curvature in the road, where are they going to be stopping to drop people off? I like the idea of having dedicated parking for scooters. There are a lot of scooters. I think people do utilize that. When the scooters did come on scene in Cleveland, I mean, they were littered all over the place. They were on our sidewalks, in our front yards, and you can't move them without sounding the alarm. So that's a concern. I think if there's some dedicated space for that, that'd be great, because people do like to use them on the towpath. So there are large concerns. I think, again, people are behind the idea because it's great. You want to see growth in Tremont. It is going to be more aesthetically pleasing for sure. But I think it's going to really create a problem right there. I really would love to see one of the other spaces utilized. I know, better said than done, I'm not fronting the money for this business. There's still Gulowski sitting vacant. There's Fahrenheit. What's going to go there? There's the Lolita that's been empty for years now. I mean, there's spaces that are available that are maybe better suited for a project like this. Or maybe some real restrictions need to be looked at with what's already in place to make this less congested and less of a real problem. I want to see a business that comes in do well. I don't think anyone wants to see it fail. And then what you have another vacant restaurant, bar space in Tremont that someone else can scoop up and say, well, I'm gonna, do whatever I want with the space. It's already zoned this way. We already have these, these variances. And then, there's high turnover, like what the old Cloak and Dagger used to be, until that finally settled on a really good, that was a primo spot, but it just didn't work for that space for a really long time. So those are my main concerns, above other things like what's it gonna smell like, when you're downwind and it's, they're brewing. But, I just wanted to get that out there.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are you speaking on behalf of this project?
Moss just entered the room as well. I don't know if you planned on speaking.
Are you here for this, or are you here for the other one? Great, thank you. That's what I thought.
Thank you, Madam
Okay.
Chair. I actually wanted to defer to Shannon Leonard for a moment.
Okay.
Excuse me. Good morning, Madam Chair. Shannon Leonard, Chief Zoning Planner, Chief Zoning Administrator. The property that they are seeking here is the variances are for parking for 23 spaces. In cases past, it is not, you all have either granted full variances on parking or required them to, per the code 349.05, find spaces, shared parking solutions within 400 feet or walking distance of the property. In terms of zoning and city planning, generally speaking, an adaptive reuse of this property for this use, providing an amenity to the neighborhood as well as travelers along the towpath trail, is generally supported by our department and our staff planners. In addition to that, when it comes to safety and things of that nature, a lot of those things we see as neighborhoods become more vibrant and more neighborhood amenities come into place, whether that's a restaurant, bar, or a retail shop. It tends to add more vibrancy and safety to our neighborhoods. So just wanted to let you all know that they are seeking a parking variance, which is not unheard of in our city across our communities, and not a use variance. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Leonard. The one variance we do have is regard to the parking. So we understand the other concerns as well. So board comments, questions?
Madam Chair, yes, I have a question for the appellant. So you've heard your neighbors talk about deliveries and the challenges with the topography. You're on the hill, and there's already a lot of people parked on the street there. I'm very familiar with the area. So tell us about how deliveries are going to happen, how frequently they're going to happen. I know we have many breweries in the city of Cleveland, both in Ohio City and Tremont. Forest City comes to mind. They don't have parking. They have deliveries happening too. So I do a comparison to your type of brewery versus something like that, which is bigger, and how your deliveries will work.
So if you say bigger, to just point, tag on to that last point you made, Forest City and Terrestrial, for example, which is also in a very residential neighborhood without parking, they both have a similar size brewing system. However, both of them have a larger number of occupants. Forest City has that big event hall, and Terrestrial also has over 100, I think 100 inside, and then a much larger outdoor space than what we proposed. As far as deliveries, of course, during the construction, I kind of want to treat that separate. To get the brewing equipment in and also the construction equipment, yes, there will be deliveries for that. But during regular operation, which I think is what the main concern is, there will be deliveries of grain, and mostly that's the bulk item for the brewing, is the grain. And that would probably happen about once a month. And it would not come in on a semi truck or anything like that. It would come in on a box truck. So that is the one thing that is particular to a brewery compared to a restaurant. The spent grain also needs to be transported off, and that typically is taken by farmers or people like that. They come in a regular truck. And then as far as the restaurant portion of it, yes, there will be deliveries for food, the produce, and also for things we're not making on site, beverages we're not making on site. So I'm involved in another brewery in Virginia, and we have one box truck of food delivered a week and one box truck of from a distributor for alcoholic beverages. So that is about the extent of reoccurring deliveries that I see.
What time of day would those deliveries happen? In the morning?
Yes, yeah, in the morning. That typically we see them Friday morning and I want to say Thursday morning. So like, yes.
And where would the box truck go? Right in front of the building, or?
There is a driveway right to the northeastern side of the building that the box truck could pull into. Yes.
Okay, so the box truck would not be pulling over the curve of the street.
Correct.
Parked on the street.
And so our plans add a roll-up door, a large roll-up door for patrons, but also for deliveries of that. And then also the grain room for the brewery where the grain is stored has a roll-up door facing that driveway. Just to account for that, to really have a good process of flow.
So you're envisioning the truck pulling in the driveway and offloading into that side-loaded garage door?
Yeah.
Okay. That answers my question about deliveries. And with respect to people parking elsewhere and walking to your property, and I'm speaking particular to the parking lot where Sokolowski's used to be, Are you gonna direct people to park both at the architecture firm and in that public parking? How are you gonna let people know where to go?
Yeah, so what worked in the other business I'm affiliated with is to highlight it on social media, on our website, but then also have little stand-up holders with like QR codes and having issues having issues finding parking today, check this out, and then give them those alternatives. I've looked at other establishments in Tremont, and they have 3 or 4 spots that they propose customers to park at on their website. So we would certainly create
Okay.
something similar.
I think that's important because, I mean, the residents, they all know there is no parking in Tremont. Anywhere, if there's no street parking, the parking lots exist and are underparked all the time, but street parking is really not available. So the fact that you have some plan in place to try to direct your patrons to go to available parking, I think is important to note for the record and for everyone here to know. Thank you.
All right, anything else? Ms. Wilson, you have anything?
Yeah, I guess I'm curious to hear from the appellant, whether you can still yield a reasonable return if you don't get a variance for the parking. What does that look like for you?
For this business, no. For this business, we would have to sell the building and we would be out money that we spent to date on architectural and all the other things. So we would undoubtedly have a loss. Our business purpose was to put a small brewery, local brewery in place. It wasn't to do something else. That's why we purchased that location. Vacant building again from a machine shop. So our thought was this was a lighter use, industrial use, than somebody machining metal with oils and everything else.
Deliveries.
And delivered more deliveries than anything we'll see in that location. Again, it's been empty 3 years. So no, we would unfortunately have to put the building for sale to get the variance, and either somebody knocks the building down and puts housing, which is probably making that potentially cost prohibitive. But yeah, I don't know, or you knock it down and make it a park, the city buys it. I don't know what you do at that building or that spot. There might be 120 options, but what are viable options? For us, that's a viable option, and that's what we're hoping to accomplish.
With respect to those other uses too, parking is also not available for any other, if there were market rate housing put on here, unless it was, I guess, a townhome, there would be no, like if an apartment building were proposed, there would also be no parking. So I don't know that some of those uses alleviate the parking issue.
And I do believe that we could put this building to a lot of uses that would not need as much parking, but maybe would bother the residents in other ways, like smells, or if it were to operate again as a machine shop, for example, with 3 employees, that is certainly different for parking, but it creates other issues. And then to just answer your question on the profitability, the brewery industry is on a somewhat downward slope, and all the breweries that are right now struggling, like Arche and Akron, they are breweries that went into distribution. Like I think it was proposed by Mr. Butler. If we were to go into distribution and sold our product at grocery stores rather than in-house, there's not enough margin to make this by any means a sustainable operation.
So you need a big operation. This is not a big operation.
Did that answer your question, Ms.
Yes,
Wilson?
Madam Chair.
Okay. Ms. Brown, Ms. Holzer, did you have anything? No, okay. Mr. Bay, I think we have correspondence from council.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Yes, down. It's on the table, but it's out of my short arm right now.
Yep, we have a letter from Councilman McCormick. Mentioning, it says, Ms. Kukla, please accept this email as my full support for the variances requested for 2070 West 7th Street. Will be heard on 4/29. This is from April 15th. I can go through the rest of these as well. I think she already I think some of these were in the folder that you received, but, so the Norfolk Literary Block Club, has submitted a letter basically summarizing their appreciation for the applicant coming for the Block Club to present 3 different meetings. There wasn't any, direct answer as far as they support or deny the variances. A lot of this just voices appreciation for them coming to the community with their propositions. And there's an objection letter from Fat Cats, the restaurant directly behind this property, by Ricardo Sandoval. He says, I'd like to extend my gratitude to the members of the Zoning Appeals Board for allowing me to present this letter. Tim and I founded Fat Cats, our restaurant in Tremont on February 2nd, 1997. Our journey spanning 27 years has been incredibly fulfilling, not just in terms of financial success, but also in our integration into the fabric of our neighborhood. We see ourselves as true partners with our neighbors, a sentiment that goes beyond mere words. Since our inception, Tremont has experienced significant growth, with new retail establishments, homes, and apartments adding to its vibrancy as a place to live and work. However, such growth needs careful planning, and particularly concerned about the proposed brewery at 2070 West 7th Street and its potential impact on parking shortages for residents on West 7th and 10th Streets, as well as nearby areas. While I support responsible business growth, it must be in harmony with the community's needs. The lack of a parking plan, especially for a venue with many seats, could adversely affect our neighbors. This issue will impact both current and future residents. Therefore, I oppose the idea of a brewery restaurant at 2070 West 7th Street. Thank you for your understanding and consideration. Sincerely, Ricardo Sandoval. Those are the only letters that I have here.
And Fat Cats is at the corner of Thurman and 10th there, right?
Right behind them.
Right behind there, yeah.
That's their parking lot.
Okay.
Madam Chair, one
So,
other
can
question.
I make a comment about the letter from the Block Club? I'm reading it, it does give full support for the zoning variance in the letter.
Okay.
Thanks.
Is that clear to you, Mr. Bay?
Do you want to read it? During multiple presentations, it was noted there were 2 non-conformance issues regarding zoning code 33708 and zoning code 349.04. One was not an issue. And then after thorough discussion of the pros and cons of supporting this business at this specific location, the resultant need for variance request, the NOLBC membership voted in overwhelming majority to support the proposal and application.
Is that the letter that you have?
Yep.
Yeah, it didn't sound right when you said it there.
Okay.
Same letter. No, sorry about that.
No
I
worries.
just got these. It's
Okay, Ms. Wilson, you had another question?
I did, I just wanted to be clear about the occupancy. So at the sort of peak hours of the operations, how many people do you anticipate will be occupying the brewery?
Under 100.
Even at peak events?
Yeah, there could be a possibility if everything was maxed out on the rooftop and everything was inside, it could be slightly higher than that. But I would be surprised by that.
The way the layout is presented to, is that there are 72 occupants on the lower level, which is the main customer area. And then there is an event room for 20 occupants on the second floor. So we don't really anticipate that. Like, for example, if there's live music downstairs, you won't be able to see or hear it really in the event room. So it may be used by patrons to have a conversation, but it's not, they cannot attend the same event in that room. Is I guess what I'm trying to get to. So
There won't be service in the event room.
Right.
There won't be service on the rooftop. And people have to come get their own beverages and all.
And take it up? So no wait staff up there?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr.
Butler.
Butler.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for the floor again. I just want to point out one thing. There's a great question mark on one of those bullet points, and if this board is going to be inclined to grant the variance or a version of the variance today, I think it needs to be addressed for the reasons that we've all brought up and that you've brought up. Then is that the hours of operation are subject to change based on local sporting events, for example. There are 81 Guardians home games, 36 Cavaliers home games, and probably no more than 8 Browns home games, sometimes more than one, more than that. That's 125 events a year that are subject to the special event hours that are still a question mark today, and certainly a question mark for the neighborhood. This board is, I'm not advising the board, but I'd like to say this board has plenary authority to put restrictions on hours with the granting of a variance, and to make this variance applicable to this applicant only, if that's going to be the case. I would, and I don't stand in the shoes of your law department, of course, but I, you know, that to me is, that's a third of the year. That's more than a third of the year. Hours subject to change. And that's more than 30 year then that people could be congregating, drinking on the rooftop next to residences, across from residences after 11 p.m.
Madam Chair, Ms. Leonard raised her hand. Just in case you didn't see that.
Thank you. Ms. Leonard, you had a comment?
Yes, Madam Chair, I just heard the applicant state if there was music occurring, they would need to submit additional use permit for any type of live entertainment or music, as that requires a different set of standards in terms of zoning code regulations and distance from residential. So that was not included in the original application. So any live entertainment would need to be addressed via an addendum to their permit request or an additional permit. So just to be clear, in terms of that use that was not indicated in the original permit application.
And Ms. Leonard, is there a potential for a need for a variance for that as well?
Yes, they would need to be 500 feet away from residential. So if they want to move forward today with just the brewery and the use as a bar, restaurant, brewery, that was what was adjudicated for in this application.
Do we need to ask them what they want to do?
Madam Chair, as I listen to this, I'm feeling that more planning is needed on behalf of the appellant.
In what are you thinking specifically?
Well, not trying to be too specific, but you know, we've had cases where a need for a parking plan, a better plan, a real plan would have helped, maybe isn't required. I think a parking plan presented to us would help me understand how this would function better.
Okay. Ms. Wilson? Ms. Holzer? Ms. Roca? Comments?
I mean, it's a challenging case. These types of cases are always challenging because I think both sides have great arguments.
Exactly.
For and against the variance. I want to note and respect that the board understands that you have put a lot of time and effort into community engagement, which we appreciate seeing. It is sometimes unique and rare to have an appellant who has proactively gone to the community and tried to address people's concerns through the planning process. So I think we like to see that as a board, and we commend you for doing that. And with the residents, your concerns are heard and valid. And there are some, you know, with the legal standard that we have to apply, there are some, I think, areas that weigh in your favor. So it is a very challenging case. I don't know parking plan wise with respect to Ms. Hamilton Brown's statement. I do believe the appellants have presented a parking plan as they see it. Could there be some additional detail added to that? Sure. I'm of the opinion that they've done their due diligence on that. So I would be prepared to move forward. However, I know that there may be disagreement with that on the board. So
Excuse me, I'd be interested to hear thoughts on, making a condition to the motion as to hours of, operation and exceptions to that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I think there needs to be a little more consideration in terms of the parking concern. In my opinion, I think the lack of parking is gonna adversely affect the neighborhood, and I'm very concerned about that. I'm not sure if there's any additional agreements that can be had between this company and the neighboring businesses, as you have with the architects. But I'm just one board member, so there's that.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
So, we are talking to another business, but it would not be closer than the ones we pointed out. Would that be acceptable to you if it was 0.3, 0.4 miles away? Or, because if you're asking for it to be within 100 feet, it's not gonna happen.
Or 400
It needs to be
feet.
400 feet, not 100.
Like, there are no options.
So
We've looked.
The only option would be your fat cat's neighbor and they're opposing this,
So
so.
he doesn't have enough spots for his own business and us too. I don't even know if he has enough for his own
He has
business
7
by
spots.
official
Likely not.
terms. So
It's likely not.
So that would be my question to you. That would be something that would make you change your opinion if it was 0.3, 0.4 miles away, or if it had to be within the 400 feet.
I think that would be acceptable for me, at least, because what I think is unfair to your neighbors is to have 100 people jamming up the residential street, and then they can't get through, and, you know, their driveways are blocked for the sake of the business. That will certainly change the character of the neighborhood, and I'm just not in favor of that.
This might be a question, just came to mind, Mr. Bay. To what extent could the streets department, streets and traffic get involved and do traffic flow control?
Shannon Leonard just raised her
Yeah, I
hand.
think about the first.
Yeah.
Leonard, about that question.
Ms. Leonard?
Good morning, Madam Chair. So a couple things. I know that Tremont offers some type of valet program with businesses that has generally been a requirement of this board in years past. That program or having a lease on file with a neighboring business, whether that was within 400 feet or 100 feet. In addition to that, with streets, that's something they would need to explore with streets and engineering. Mr. Maverick could assist in that, but we do not have any control over that.
Right.
So, but that's something that they could explore in the future or in the near future with traffic and engineering. But it should also be noted that this, as I think one of your board members had pointed out, that, you know, parking is going to be an issue, whether this is a brewery or whether this is an office space.
Correct.
So I'm actually surprised that Ms. Gregonis has not joined us today. We normally have
my thoughts.
somebody from the CDC to speak to the valet program.
Actually, Member Roca, I was wondering the same thing, and they could be helpful in developing a plan and also communicating it. I mean, just saying on social media to me, that's helpful. Is that a plan?
Did you, in your community discussions, this is through the chair to the appellant, did you discuss the valet program and being a part of the valet program that come up?
Have you met with Ms. Gregonis?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
Multiple times.
Okay.
We have reached out to valet companies to see if they would add a spot by our building. And at this point, it doesn't appear to be economical in suggesting we utilize the valet spots that are already within Tremont.
So they were asking for us essentially to provide a parking lot for them to park the cars at. And that parking lot would have to be fairly close.
I see.
For the valet service to come there and have a place to park.
Right.
Right.
And they said that they're not allowed to use that city parking lot.
No.
Right. So the valet program that already exists, you could become part of that valet program, but the cars would be parked in the library parking lot or somewhere else where that valet company already operates. Is that what you're saying?
That is
Okay,
correct.
okay.
Yeah, and that's why on the plan, Toby listed the closest valet to us, which is again, 0.3 miles away approximately, to drop a car off the valet, and then unfortunately you'd have to walk the rest of the day.
Right.
I mean, you're not without some options, is what we are hearing, that you have the valet program exists and you can become a part of that. It's not ideal in that people would have to walk a little bit farther. And you also have the underparked lot across from the old Sokolowski's that is fairly close to your business, but people would have to walk, in the evenings, along Towpath Trail, and up towards that. So it's not as though you have not presented the board with some options on parking plan. You have. It just, the situation in the neighborhood is not ideal.
Right. All right, board, so, I would like to know what you'd like to do as the next step with the information that you have before you.
Do you want to ask us one by one?
I guess I'm gonna have to. All right, I'll begin with the lovely Miss Holzer.
Based off of the information that was presented today, I'm comfortable moving forward and voting.
Okay. Miss Brown?
I don't object to moving forward.
Okay. Miss Wilson?
Fine to move forward.
Okay. Miss Roca?
I also do not object to moving forward.
Okay, great. All right, so who's gonna be crafting the motion?
You're looking at me, okay, I guess it's me. All right, this is going to be a challenging. All right, Madam Chair, I move, based on the extensive testimony that we've heard from the appellant and adjacent neighbors, and the city, I move that we approve calendar number 24-048 on the condition that the appellant abide by the hours of operation that was read into the record, and that we, the Board of Zoning Appeals, have the agreement on file that the appellant has 5 parking spots at their architect's place of business, which is how many feet? I didn't get the feet.
About a quarter of a mile.
Quarter of a mile from the property in question. And that the appellant evaluate the availability of having scooter or alternative transportation, bike, scooter parking in
It's active transit.
Sorry,
It's active transit.
active transit parking or space somewhere on the property.
One friendly amendment that there will not be any live band or anything without
Thank you.
additional process being followed.
Yes, and that the appellant will apply for a permit for any live entertainment and follow that process as well.
All right, I'm gonna open it up for a friendly discussion of limitation of hours of operation for special events.
I guess my question would be, if there are sporting events, is your intention to go beyond the hours of operation?
Yeah. That's an interesting point, because I was just thinking about the point that was made about that's a third of the year, third of the calendar. There's very few sporting events that are going on longer than our proposed business hours anyway. So I have no problem even taking that part off of our proposal, because you're looking at such a small percentage of anything.
I think that's an excellent decision, and we can probably So the hours of operation will be limited to those stated in what was read into the record, minus the contingency for special events for sporting events and
Holidays.
holidays. Comfortable with that, gentlemen?
I am.
Okay, thank you. All right, so friendly amendment?
But the amendment doesn't have to have those things. It should just say the hours, no exceptions. How about that? Make it clean.
Right.
So the hours of operation are as what was read into the record, excluding any special event language that was included in your presentation.
Understood.
Okay,
I don't have any other
I think that's it.
statements to make.
All right, great. So we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Board Member Holzer, I second.
Thank you, Ms. Holzer. If you'd like to call the vote, please.
Okay, Ms. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Faith,
Yes.
Ms. Holzer,
Yes.
Ms. Roca,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
So calendar number 24-048 is approved. Mr. Bay, do you want to read the instruction portion of that?
I actually would prefer, I don't have it written.
You don't
down.
have it written down? Okay, so the motion will be ratified when we next meet, which is on May 6th. And you can contact the office on May 8th. Give the office a call and check on its status, and if it's ready, then you'll be able to pick it up. Your contact person will be Brittany at this point in our.
Brittany Jones.
Brittany Jones in the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Okay.
And in parting, what I would like to see happen is for you to meet with Ms. Gregonis and have her work with you on parking situations. And also work with, Mr. Begg, who's the planner?
Brittany Pavone.
Okay. Mr. Bay will give you contact information for the
I've
city.
talked to her.
You have it, all right, great. I'd like to see if you can explore options with the Streets and Traffic Department on some sort of traffic control. While we were talking, a situation came to mind where there is dual parking on both sides of the street, and at peak hours, the traffic is directed in one direction so that it doesn't impede the flow.
And I think I would also like to add maybe some communication with your neighbors so that if there are issues, they do have a contact person that they can reach out to and say, hey, we have a problem.
Yeah, that's
That's good.
absolutely fair point.
Because the expectation is that you're gonna be very good neighbors now,
That's the plan. We hope that our neighbors are our customers.
okay? All right,
Thank you, members of the board.
all right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Butler, you were with the city of Lakewood?
I was for 9 years. Or,
Right.
11 years, I should say, excuse me, and then City of Brooklyn as well.
Right.
Yes, we met then.
Yes, I know you from Lakewood,
Yes, right.
specifically the dog park.
Yes, nice to see you again.
Yes.
How are you?
I didn't recognize you right off, so.
Me.
Yeah, it's you. Okay. All right, finally,
Wonder if it's useful for them to have a copy of this.
Thank you.
do you want a copy, or I think, did you get a copy of the petitions that were signed by the folks?
Yes,
The
we do have a
neighbors?
copy of it.
All right, great. There you go.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Bay, are we doing a BOZA bundle on these next two?
Yes, yes, we are.
Okay. All right, Ms. Holzer, on 24052 and 24053, we're doing a BOZA bundle. So you can go ahead.
I will read them in together. Our next cases are calendar numbers 24-052 and calendar number 24-053. So first we have calendar number 24-052. This is at 2636 Scranton Road. Wagner Awning, owner, proposes to erect 254 linear feet of 6-foot high chain link fence and 77 linear feet of 6-foot high ornamental fence in a G2 local retail business district. The owner appeals for relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances as stated in the agenda and the public record, of which there is one for this case. And then next we have calendar number 24-053. This is at 2654 Scranton Road. Again, Wagner Awning, owner, proposes to erect 269 linear feet of 6-foot high chain link fence and 176 linear feet of 6-foot high ornamental fence in a D1 family residential district. The owner appeals for relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances as stated in the agenda and the public record, of which there is one with this one as well. And with that, I will hand it over to Ms. Wilson for the oath.
Thank you, Ms. Holzer. I am swearing in all who are present for this case, and I'll start with you. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth? You raise your right hand, reply with I do, state your name, spell your name, and give your address.
Thank you. I do. My name is Logan Coy. That's Logancoy. My address is 2306 West 17th Street, Cleveland, Ohio 44113. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone online wishing to speak in this matter? Right. Okay, back to you, Madam Chair.
Awesome. All right, we'll take the history of the property, please.
One moment, I'm just shuffling my papers here. Thank you, Madam Chair. The zoning history for this property was originally zoned semi-industry in 1929. In 2018, both of these parcels changed zoning. One to family, two family, and the other to local retail business. Let me, this next slide actually had, let's see, calendar number 53 was changed to two family, and calendar number 52 was changed to local retail. Mixed use structure, store, and dwelling was demolished in July of 1975 at 2636 Scranton. No records for 2654 Scranton exists. And a violation notice in 2013 was issued for exterior maintenance of the parking lot. No variances have been requested for this property.
Okay, legal standard, please.
For both properties, Madam Chair, members of the Board, appellant is requesting an area variance from the fencing requirements of the zoning code. To obtain the area variance, appellant must prove that denying the request will create practical difficulty not generally shared by other land or buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and the granting variance will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code.
Great, thank you. All right. Tell us what you'd like to do as it relates to the zoning request.
Yes. So, actually, would you mind going back to those pictures there? Perfect. So basically, we just want to put up 6-foot ornamental fence on the street side. So if you're looking at the bottom left picture where that fire hydrant is, that would be ornamental, 6 foot. And then all around the other sides of that parking lot would be chain link at 6 foot. Same thing for this top left picture. The side that we see with those trees right there in the entrance, that would be ornamental fence, 6 foot, and then chain link on the other 3 sides there. Now, we have support from the councilman, Kerry McCormick, which has been submitted to the record. I do not believe we have on record anything from the CDC Tremont West. We have spoken with them. They have given their support. I do not have that documented, unfortunately.
Who did you speak with?
It was the owner, Josh Rosen of our company, spoke with someone there. It's on an email thread, and I could not tell you the name.
Okay.
Without going on my phone. So.
Okay. All right.
I also have the neighbor, which in the bottom right picture here, that house with this red brick garage. I have a letter that I'm happy to submit to the record if
Yeah,
I
you
could
can
read
submit,
that.
give that to Mr. Bay.
Okay. Our, I guess our arguments would be across the street, which you can kind of see in the top right picture, just beyond that stop sign, is one of our other buildings. And by the way, I'm the director of operations. We have 5 properties in the area. One is the Wagner Awning here, and off of Scranton and Auburn is the Tappan Building. Right there off of Auburn and Scranton is another parking lot that has 6-foot chain link and ornamental as well. Also, if you look at Auburn Avenue and West 18th Street to West 19th Street, that is the Nestle parking lot, which also has 6-foot ornamental all the way around. They have quite a big complex. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but they have 6-foot ornamental fence.
So the Nestle parking lot, if I'm right, it's facing 19th, right? And
Yes.
it's south of Auburn, so it's
Correct.
to the far right.
Correct.
And
It
then
looks like a
your awning building, was it known by another name previously?
Wagner Awning, Ohio Awning.
That's
yeah.
it, okay. I know it is Ohio awning. So you've recently, that's the big building, and then the entrance to the expressway is just to the right, correct?
I'm not following the entrance to the expressway.
Might be a little further, might be a block or so further down. And what's across the street from you on the left yellow block?
That is our other building's parking lot, which has 6 feet, 6-foot chain link and ornamental.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're basically in between 2 6-foot parking lots, trying to get a 6-foot fence. We have support from one of the neighbors, where the right yellow square, where it's got the, lack of a better term, jet down, that is a double lot of a neighbor's. So I knocked on the door once, didn't hear from them. It was far enough away that I didn't feel that I needed their permission. We're going right up next to their 5-foot chain link. And then where it goes almost parallel with Auburn, where that jut down goes up. I'm sorry if this is improper, but that's a land bank house, and the owners or the current occupants refused to.
Which one is the land bank house?
So
Right
if
there,
you follow
okay.
the jut, no, up and over. Yes, right there. That
There,
property,
okay,
yes.
got it.
So.
Okay, and I think of note, what else do you have to say in your presentation?
I mean, I don't want to say needless things. I think we're
Okay.
just in between 2 6-foot fences, and we would like to join that. And we did have a resident that was robbed at gunpoint. She got her car stolen in January. She is, I want to say, 51 years old, a single mother, is mortified, for life. And regardless, we need a fence, a 4-foot fence. I could hop over it on my best days, probably on like a Thursday or Friday. I think a 6-foot fence is critical here.
Mr. Bay, do you have the slides for the clips for the
yes.
examples of the specified fence? And of interest, I think, is also the specifications for the chain link. Because we're talking about a coated chain link,
Black coated?
black coated. As opposed to silver. Yeah.
These are the only sheets I had right here.
Yeah, there you go. I think that's probably shows the best example of the chain link.
Are the other, Madam Chair, to the appellant, are the other fences you mentioned identical to this? Or do they
Yeah,
differ?
this is the same design, save some contractor and everything.
Okay.
Yeah, exact same, down to the operator.
And there's gonna be a sliding gate.
Sliding gate,
Sliding
yes, ma'am.
gate.
That residents will have a.
Yes, 65 parking spaces. We have 59 apartments in the building. We have 65 spaces in those lots, and they will all have their own transmitter.
I'm just curious, is there an extra charge for this?
For the residents? No, not at this time. I mean, I think eventually, and that's kind of out of my realm, but.
You don't need to say it on the record then.
Yeah.
Thank
Just was curious.
That's why I try to keep it limited here.
Yeah.
So,
Don't need to put you in a precarious situation.
I must say, I'm glad that I went last because the room is empty and I was extremely nervous. So.
Oh, don't be nervous.
No, this is perfect.
Don't be nervous.
Just you and us.
Yeah.
Though we have had appellants cry before us, but usually good tears, happy tears. And I will share from personal knowledge that someone who has a business adjacent on the east side of Scranton had a truck stolen.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I will say just honestly, in the summer months, it is 1 to 2 times a week. I'm sweeping up glass, or me or the maintenance guys are sweeping up glass in those 2 parking lots. A lot of the foot traffic that I've noticed just being around is people come off 25th. They cut through that side street down Auburn, and on West 18th Place, they go to a house, they walk down that street, get grumpy, and then they come back looking pretty jolly. So,
well, and Scranton is also an artery to Metro Hospital.
Yep.
So you get a lot of people, pedestrian and scooter carts, you know.
Oh, yes.
Well, I mean, I don't know what the
Scooters.
Yeah, the scooters.
Yeah.
Well, not scooters, but seated.
Other
scooters.
power-driven
Yes.
mobility devices.
Powered mobility devices, yes.
Other power-driven mobility
There
devices
you go.
that they're legally called.
That's it. That would be it.
So you
All right.
could see the Nestle fence there on the bottom left. photo.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, any other questions, board? Ms. Brown, Ms. Holzer?
None from me.
Okay. All right,
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Mr. Bay?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Executive Bay, City Planning. We don't see an issue with the security fences they're proposing. You know, it would be better to match the ornamental fence all around. But I mean, is there an issue why you can't continue the ornamental fence along the corner, or at least along Harbor?
That's a valid point. For what it's worth, across the street on Auburn, we have a transition because the sliding gate is ornamental, and as soon as that sliding gate meets the latch post, it's an immediate transition to chain link. So there is an existing transition in chain link on Auburn, just on the east side of Scranton. For us, it was, well, for me, my job is to look at the budget, so it was a numbers thing.
So that's the only design question I have. We don't have an issue with the variances that they're requesting.
I think since they're using the coated chain link, it almost disappears. So the focus then becomes more on the ornamental, and I think budgetary concerns in this situation are reasonable. Okay. All right, I'll entertain a motion then. Who would like to do the motion? Ms. Roca doesn't have to do it.
Yes, you get a pass.
Yes, she took the heavy one.
She did. We appreciate her for that. Madam Chair, based on the testimony that we have heard today, I move that we approve calendar number 24-052, as well as 24-053.
Great, could I have a second? Ms. Brown?
Member
would you-
Brown, I second.
Beautiful. Thank you, Ms. Brown. If you'd like to call the vote, please.
Ms. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Faith,
Yes.
Ms. Holzer,
Yes.
Ms. Roca,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
All right, calendars number 24-052 and 24-053 have passed. They will be ratified when we meet next on May 6th. So you can call the office on May 8th and see if they're ready for you to pick up.
That's Brittany.
And that's Brittany. Sounds like you've already spoken with her or
A
been in
few
contact.
times. I was worried I was gonna forget something today, so.
Okay. You did well.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
do
you.
you feel
Thank you,
less,
Madam Chair.
you feel less nervous?
No.
No?
Once I get in the car.
Okay. All right, good day. You deserve a treat now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, thank you.
Treat of
Thank you,
your
Madam Chair.
choice.
Thank you, Board.
Okay, thanks. All right. All right. Old business. We have 1, 2, 7, and 8 without objection, board?
No objection.
Without objection.
Beautiful, thank you. Mr. Bay, you want to tell us what's going on with the information here?
Yeah, I didn't get any, response from Liz about anything with the information. It seems like their drawing process is taking longer than expected with the architectural drawings. So I believe they need more time.
Okay, reasonable. Without objection, board?
Without objection.
Without-
We need to state how much time they are receiving or?
I think they automatically get 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, there was a typo on resolution 24. It's 24-02, and I believe it's supposed to be 24-020.
Oh, I see.
Got it? Just want to make sure we get that buttoned up. All right, anything else?
After this, we have a presentation from Matt Moss.
Yes, we do. All right, we're going to adjourn. Thank you, everyone, for your time today. Wasn't expecting a couple of those cases to go as long as they did. Frankly.
Madam
All right.
Chair, I'm not able to stay longer for the presentation.
You'll miss Mr. Moss.
I will.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, everyone.
All right, thank you, Ms. Brown.
And I have a meeting at 1 p.m., so I'm gonna have to hop off.
All right,
It's in person.
all right.
But I will listen in with headphones until that 1 p.m.
Okay, super. Awesome. I am going to, we're gonna take a little
Yes.
brief comfort break.
Of course.
Appreciate that.
And then
I've been taking breaks throughout.
we'll be back.
I don't want to sit there
You're all
because it feels like I'm an appellant, so I'm gonna sit here if that's okay.
So wherever you want.
Whatever's coming.
Would you like to use the clicker, Matt, or you just want me to move forward for you?
Whatever, if you have the remote, I'll use that.
Joyce didn't get my email. About what?
Be a good idea to schedule it, but I don't know.
We're still on, mic.
Yeah, we are, here, I can.
All right,
The whole planning commission will be here.
Oh, yeah, everyone here except for us.
Staff.
all right, let's crank through this then, baby.
I'm ready when you are.
I'll
All
step
right.
these and let, so we can know we got it in today.
Everybody
Go right
ready?
ahead, yes.
Just make sure we're unmuted so we can.
We are not unmuted. We are.
We are.
Oh,
Make sure it's still live.
I just did.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Remaining members of the Board of Zoning Appeals, thanks for having me. My name is Matt Moss. I'm the manager for strategic planning here at the Planning Commission, formerly a regular attendee as a near West Side City planner
Exactly.
for the Board of Zoning Appeals. I have some slides here. This is probably maybe the sixth or so time I've given this presentation. It was originally created for the Planning Commission, since the Planning Commission is the steward of our new Transportation Management Program. I previously presented this to the Landmarks Commission for information purposes, so they are aware, and now I'm here today to present these slides to you. So I'll run through these pretty quickly, given our time constraint. I'll be happy to answer whatever questions I can, and perhaps return and answer more questions if necessary. But I'll just go through these really briefly. I'm giving you an overview today of our Transportation Demand Management Program, the program standards themselves. So I have just a brief agenda here. I'll give you an overview of TDM, what the program standards are, what the fact sheets are, what TDM tiers mean, what the TDM strategy menu means, what the process is for application for projects requiring TDM, and the registration following that, and then how we plan on enforcing this. So there are quite a few definitions that are now created and added to the zoning code. We will have the full list available on our website. I put these three up here since they are the essential ones, just to understand the basics of what TDM is. Yes.
Will we be getting your slide deck?
Yes, and I'll also send you the documents themselves, the program standards and the fact sheets.
Lovely, thank you.
Yeah. These are the main three definitions you need to understand in order to understand this presentation and TDM in general. But again, I'll have a list of all of the definitions for you. There's only about 8 or so that are new. And they're also pretty self-explanatory. So TDM simply means design features, incentives, and tools implemented by a transit-oriented development project designed to reduce vehicle miles traveled and or single occupancy vehicle trips. What is a TOD project? Well, that is any land use development, including new construction, which changes or expands use or uses on a parcel of land, either entirely or partially within the TOD zone. What's the TOD zone? It's essentially the area within a quarter-mile radius of a hybrid transit station. That's a station, whether it's bus or rail, with a 50-minute headway service or better at any time of day, that is depicted in the TDM program standards. And this is estimated at roughly a 5-minute walk. So we have a map that shows that, what that looks like. We'll make sure you have a copy of this as well. This is also visible on the city planning's GIS system. It's essentially this quarter-mile area, 5-minute walk area from the city's, rather GCRTA's priority transit corridors. So these are corridors like West 25th, Lorraine, Detroit, Euclid, Superior, St. Clair, Kinsman, Broadway, anywhere, and also I should mention too, within that quarter mile of the train stations, so the red line, green line, and blue line.
So is this all fixed route plus the trains?
It is, yes, essentially, yes, yep. It's
Okay.
bus, it's the priority bus routes with 15-minute headways and the train routes.
Okay, great.
And just as a quick note of background on that, Madam Chair, that route also reflects the routes that RTA is currently planning on implementing bus rapid transit corridors onto. So West 25th is currently one they're studying, Lorraine, and also Broadway.
Excellent. Oh, that's great.
So
Good.
at a high level, what does TDM mean? And essentially what we're doing is within that transit area, we're replacing off-street parking requirements in the zoning code with TDM. And so all projects, whether they're new construction, changing use, or expanding use within that quarter-mile buffer, they're no longer required to build a minimum amount of off-street parking spaces. So new construction projects in tier 1 or above, I'll explain in a second, must develop, submit, and register a TDM plan. And then for changes of use, expansions, TDM requirements do not kick in until tier 2. So to restate, there won't be any parking rooms at all anymore within a quarter-mile transit. The requirement to put together a TDM plan kicks in at certain project thresholds based on size. And I'll show you that table in just a second. So TDM plans must include menu items that total enough points established by those tiers. They must include a detailed site plan, a project narrative, and supporting documentation depending upon the menu items, the strategies that they select. And then we review these plans when our project is going through design review or zoning review as part of the normal entitlement process. So why are we doing this? Just a brief overview. Again, our documentation has more information and goes into more detail about these things, but generally, we have found as staff and as the planning commission that parking requirements are a form of exclusionary zoning. They can exacerbate socioeconomic and racial disparities in mobility especially. Nearly a quarter of households in the city lack access to an automobile, so they don't have access to a car as part of their household. 1 in 5 Clevelanders are too young to drive. They're below the age where they're allowed to operate a motor vehicle. And surface parking generally pushes land uses farther apart, making it harder to reliably walk, bike, and take transit. This board often hears variances related to land use requirements, like the requirements for minimum off-street parking. And what we found is that generally these requirements push transportation decisions onto property owners rather than onto the transportation system itself. And so essentially, we built a transportation system that prioritizes, and in many cases in a city like Cleveland, requires people to drive. So our land uses are now being regulated in how well they respond to or accommodate that transportation system. What we are trying to do as a region, not simply through our zoning code, but in partnership with RTA, in partnership with the county and other partners, is have a more robust transportation system that includes other modes like walking, biking, and transit. The case you saw earlier today, as an example, is right near the towpath trail, which is a significant investment that the city and county and Metro Parks have made into that very system. I'll just work through these last two. Parking requirements generally make projects more expensive. Surface parking spaces can cost anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 per space. When we're talking about structured parking, whether that's above or below ground parking, that can cost upwards of $30,000 for one space. And then appeals often have weeks on our project timelines, both small and large. Appeals that you hear or zoning hearings, for example. What we expect and have planned TDM to do will be make it easier for smaller infill projects to obtain permits. So this includes things like missing middle housing. That's housing that's generally between 3 and a dozen or so units of housing. Existing, often historic mixed-use retail buildings will be allowed to be permitted without variances, and then small businesses. We expect that this will support the city's current plan investments in multimodal transit infrastructure, like I just went into. We're making large planned investments into the Midway network, for example, in Superior and Lorraine. We are working on a mobility plan. We've also completed a Vision Zero plan as well. And this also supports our transit partner, DCRTA, which, for example, also just recently, in the last few years, received large amounts of federal funding to replace rail cars on that network. I think that grant was about $130 million. The small rail car program is about $330 million.
Yeah, that's huge.
And ultimately, we expect this will facilitate more walkable, transit-oriented communities. This will make it easier for more needs and amenities to be located within that 15-minute walk, bike ride, or transit trip of people's homes. So here's that table I mentioned earlier in terms of TDM tiers. It's a little hard to read, so I'll call out some of these figures directly. The tiers range from tier 1 to tier 5. Tier 1 new construction is eligible starting at tier 1, and so that is all projects that are more than 10 units of housing, or they have 5,000 or more square feet of retail, or they have 10 or more on-site employees. The way that your project qualifies for a tier is any one of those project attributes in that threshold meets that threshold. So in other words, a project that's new construction that has 10 units of housing, but maybe it has 6,000 square feet of retail space for whatever reason, that's a tier 2 project, even though it only has 10 units of housing, for example. Changes of use or expansions of uses are only required to do a TDM plan starting at tier 2. So that's 20 more units of housing, 10 or more thousand square feet of retail, or 20 or more on-site employees. So they don't have parking requirements, and the requirement to do a plan kicks in at a higher level. That's generally because we find that these existing buildings, they're operating in an existing use, especially that is having it already is sort of accounted for in our transportation system, and so we're applying TDM projects that then want to exceed or expand many units. So once you determine, or if you're an applicant and TDM applies to you, once you determine what tier you're at, how many points you're required to provide in your plan, you can refer to what we're calling the TDM strategy menu, or simply the TDM menu. So these are strategies that are broken down into categories like transit, informational purposes, active transportation like biking and micro mobility options, parking, car share, some commuting strategies, strategies related to housing and family needs and things like that. The menu's a little small. Again, it's available on the screen, perhaps a little easier to read, but we want to include this slide just to give you a sense of what the menu looks like. So there's a short code for the strategy, there's the longer full definition, and then there's a description as well as what each strategy exactly means. So for example, the slide shows transit passes. That's an option that projects can provide. They can provide whether it's housing, even a retail project, or especially an employer or employee, a site that's simply employing people. Can provide transit passes at a variety level of subsidies, either for the residents or their staff. Depending on the subsidy, the degree to which it is subsidized, the more points you get, for example. We also have strategies from the active transportation section shown here. These are strategies like providing bicycle parking, providing long-term bicycle facilities, especially for employees. So they have lockers and showers and things like that. These strategies actually can be bundled together. And so if a certain number of them are selected, because they work better together, we provide applicants with bonus points if they do so. So that just gives you hopefully a clear example of how the menu is calibrated. We're going to send you, again, the full menu so you can review it if you wish. The fact sheets themselves, which is a separate document, it's much longer, but it breaks down the reasoning and the research behind why each menu item is worth the points that we selected. So we attempted to calibrate to the best of our ability those menu items to reflect their effectiveness at reducing single occupancy vehicle trips or just generally vehicle miles traveled. So all of that is in our background documentation.
And we'll get that too.
That's right.
Perfect.
We've taken great care to, again, it's a little hard to read on the slideshow. We have a copy of this and I'm happy to send you as well. We've taken care to try to, as seamlessly as possible, insert this policy into our existing processes for project review. And so essentially what this flow chart is trying to demonstrate is that when an applicant applies for a building permit, our expectation is that they have some awareness of what TDM is, they've understood and read the program standards, and so that plan that they're proposing is submitted as a part of their building permit application. We anticipate that that won't happen always, and especially as this program first kicks off. So we're providing resources through a website that'll be live next week on our website, a separate page that'll provide all this information on what TDM is, the resources to understand it, and how to apply it to your project. We're also available as staff, both my team and the neighborhood planners, to guide applicants on how to do that. Essentially, what we're doing is reviewing, like I mentioned earlier, that TDM plan as a part of the site plan, the elevations, like we normally do our entitlement review. That'll just be an additional component to it and integrated into that process.
We're targeting developers and multi-family.
Yeah, more larger scale developers and smaller scale projects, since again, they won't be subject to putting together a TDM plan. But we've communicated this broadly to developers that have done projects in the past. We've also presented this several times to the community development corporation, so they are aware, because projects do often have multiple touch points or multiple points of origin before they come to the city. And so we're spreading this information as far as we can to make sure that applicants who are near transit or thinking about projects near priority transit routes understand that this will be a requirement for their projects going forward.
So a fair amount of outreach so far.
That's right.
And this has been probably presented to RTA?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
Several times. I presented it to both staff and the board itself.
And the board.
Yeah.
Good, okay.
And again, I can include this in what we send you so you can look at this more closely.
Yeah.
But this will all be mapped out on our website. Speaking of website, this is a screenshot of what that'll look like. This is information. We're still tweaking it, so it's not going to look exactly like this. We're going to make the text bigger, for example. But we're building out a page that will just specifically be for TDM and will help applicants understand everything we think they need to know in order to apply this program to their projects. The last thing I'll touch upon is enforcement. And so TDM plans must be registered with licenses and assessments. That's because even though many of these elements apply to a project when it is being built and planned, things like providing transit passes is something we expect and require to happen annually, for example. And so in order to do that, that TDM plan, that narrative, those menu items, the supporting documentation, we are requiring through legislation that be registered with licenses and assessments and that it be renewed every year for the first 3 years. An applicant has demonstrated that they are providing the information that we're asking for. They're showing receipt for the transit passes, for example. Their leases don't include parking, for example, as included. It's a separate purchase option. That's also a menu item, for example, that we provide that registration. After 3 years, they can then receive that registration for a 3-year period. So basically, it's about trying to balance the burden on applicants coming in every year and registering their plans, because we expect this to happen for projects in perpetuity. the same TDM plan that's provided during that permit review process, assuming it is unchanged or is modified with the applicant's consent, that is also what is used for registration. And wasn't noted on that last slide, but we do have a fine for projects that fail to register their plans, and that fine in the code right now is $1,000.
Okay.
So that's a really high level overview. Again, like I said, we'll send you more detailed information. Happy to come back and answer questions if you've had a chance to review that. But again, projects, essentially what I think the board should understand is that you at least won't be seeing variances for projects, for parking variances for projects in that TOD zone. Projects can still have other variances that will come before you, and so that may or may not be a component of, it's impossible to predict whether it'll be a component of projects or other variances that might be asking for the board. So you should anticipate that this will be a part of projects you will see coming forward. Whether it relates to the variances or not will just depend upon that case.
So 2 quick questions.
Sure.
With the frequency of transit. So if you are, it's not every bus stop. So if you're in walking distance or your project is in walking distance of a bus stop, that's not going to necessarily qualify you for this.
Not every bus stop.
Yeah, not every bus stop. So it has to be one that runs every 15 minutes.
Yes.
Or transit runs every 15 minutes.
That's right.
Okay. And then, for example, if there's a project that's within 15 or within a mile of a 15-minute transit stop and is 6,000 square feet of retail, then they would be tier 1, right? And they do have to submit a plan.
That's right.
But they don't have to do anything else, right?
No, they don't have, so they don't have any, there isn't a minimum number of off-street parking requirements required by the code for that project. But they do have to submit a TDM plan.
That's the only thing they have to do. And then once they submit that plan, then they're just automatically, they can move forward with no parking whatsoever.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the ones in tier 2, they have to submit a plan, but then they have to go to the point system.
Regardless of what tier you're in, regardless of what the use is, whether it's new construction or change of use, plans are required starting at tier 1 and above for all projects.
Okay. So everyone has to submit a plan.
If you're a tier 1 or above.
Okay.
If you're below that, you do not have to submit a plan, and you don't have parking minimums. Does
Okay.
that make sense? So if it's
It
less than
does
10
make
units of housing, it's less than 5,000 square feet of retail, or it's less than 10 or more, 10 on-site employees, there are no parking minimums, and there is no TDM plan required.
Got
It's
it.
only above that TDM plan. is
Okay,
required.
okay.
We just, again, based on the research we've done, projects below that size generally don't have a significant impact on the transportation system, whether it's driving, walking, transit.
Right.
Writ large.
Yeah, so for example, we've seen like a, conversion of a building to multifamily housing with like 4 units or something. And they need 4 parking spots or whatever.
Right.
They don't even have to submit a plan. They just don't have those parking minimums at all anymore.
That's right.
And they can just proceed. They might need other variances, but they don't need that.
That's right.
Okay. Got it. And then
So
the point system is a little confusing to me still.
Sure.
But when you submit the documents to us and I have a chance to look at them, then maybe it'll make a little bit more sense.
Yeah, we did our best to calibrate the point requirements for the tiers, again, based on project size and intensity. Essentially, there are all sorts of estimates out there in terms of the kinds of projects, whether it's housing, retail, institutional, or office, in terms of the trips that they generate. But that's really the lens we're trying to look at this in, rather than assuming that there's a car trip associated with every use and the size of that use, that there is a trip of some kind, whether it's in a car, whether it's walking, biking, transit, whatever it may be, and trying to calibrate the amount of points required to the trips that use may be expected to generate. At the end of the day, it's an educated guess, and the way we've structured this program to try to manage that as an important detail for you all is that these standards, the tiers themselves, the points required, the menu of items is maintained by the planning commission. So this is a common practice we've seen in cities we use as models like San Francisco and Boston, for example, where they're on, in some cases, version 2 or version 3 of their program standards because they've calibrated this sort. And we expect we'll probably do the same.
Okay. 2 things. Any chance you can compile all of this into a lovely book like we got for the form-based code.
Sure, yeah.
That would be lovely. I think that would be appreciated. And how are we fitting ADA parking into this?
ADA parking, so the uses that have parking or provide parking, that's a great, also, the way I'll answer that question is by talking about parking requirements in general. The zoning regulations and or ADA regulations for parking don't change. So if a use is still providing parking, which they totally can do, this doesn't prohibit anyone from building parking near transit. If they do provide parking, if they have a parking lot as part of their project, they still have to meet all those other requirements. Landscaping, screening, ADA, compliance, it doesn't change any of that.
Okay,
It's only if they're providing parking do those rules apply.
all right. Is that what you just explained, part of this?
No,
Can
that
you
is
add that in?
the rules about parking.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to provide that. That's currently in our zoning
That's
code
what,
already.
right, right, but,
We didn't modify any of those.
okay, all right,
rules.
so.
I'm happy to provide a link to it if you'd like.
Yeah, do
Okay,
that, just so if we have questions, we
sure.
can flip over to that.
Yeah, the location requirements, so parking being required in like the rear half of the lot, for example, in residential districts, garages, for example, are only permitted in the rear half of the lot. Those location requirements, placement requirements, screening requirements, none of those change because those kick in if you're providing parking.
If parking is happening,
That's right.
yes.
Okay. I think it's 1 o'clock, they're waiting, anything else?
That is all. If you
Okay.
think of other questions, please email me. I'm happy to come back again because I know we're crunched on time today.
Yeah,
So just let me
I think, yeah, I didn't anticipate at least that one case taking as long as it did. I think a good plan for both the form-based code and for this is to give us an opportunity to digest the information,
know. Absolutely.
make notes in the margin or however we choose to do that, and then, do a touchback.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to.
So we can, go over any questions specific to the members.
Sounds good.
Good?
Sorry for those who weren't present. Maybe had to leave early.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.